dun dun da 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 dun dun da da dum bum. Good morning, everybody. Hello. Samantha Dragonotti, links in the description. All right, happy Thursday, everybody. Happy to be here. Happy to see you. Happy to be gay. Happy to be all the things. So much to go over today. So buckle in. Buckle in. All right. So much to go over. So much. All right. Let's see. Heads up. Today, the only thing we're doing today is finishing up our week of Charlie Kirk related things and freeing ourselves tomorrow from the constraints of this man and life and death. Starting tomorrow, we're going to finish up the weekend with the podcast that so many of you have requested I cover, of the guy who used to be part of the Try Guys. He had an affair with an employee. And then there's a podcast about it. So we're going to talk about it today. Tomorrow. So today, if you have any questions about Kirk, any questions about the state of America, any questions about the state of the world, if you have any questions about anything relating to anything we talk about today, get it out today, girls. Get it off your chest, because tomorrow we're going to cleanse our weekend. Talking about men who cheat, okay? That's how we're going to do a little cleansing. And then, starting next week, hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully we'll have other things to talk about. But of course, I'll keep tabs on these stories as a lot of them are developing. A lot of sad stories today as well. So we're going to go over those. I'm going to try to keep it focused today. Okay. I'm locked in to discussing thinking, philosophy as usual, forgiveness, because my Discord had a great conversation about it. And of course, how to show up in the world when the world is difficult. That's really what we want to talk about today. Okay. How do we show up in a world that is difficult? I think that's a really good kind of topic to, kind of bring our week to an end. I'm finishing up BoJack Horseman. I've got about 4 episodes left of the final season 6. So if you guys are members on our second tier, you will see that as well. I'm busting them out, girls. And then we start Love is Blind UK next week. And then I start preparing for next month. Next month, I'll be taking some time off. A friend's coming into town. And that will mark the end of my Seeing Friends from America era. And then we move full swing into the winter. So if you guys don't know, winter is the busiest time for me as a streamer, as a content creator. I don't see any family and friends, of course. I live in Europe. And then I end up having most of the viewership during that time. Most of my viewers touch grass during the summer. And I know that as the summer ends, most of them will come back. So we've had a pretty busy summer. This is the busiest summer I've ever had, ever. And I think that's a testament to the way that the world feels right now. But I assume the audience will be even more come winter because everyone comes back, from touching grass. Drink your waters, lady. Drink your waters, lady. Drink your water, ladies. And we'll see how the winter holds up. I think it will be interesting. Discord said, is Love is Blind UK for members only or everyone? Everybody. The members will have a new series. I haven't decided what to do for members yet. But Love is Blind UK will be for everybody. So that will be the next series that I cover. Yeah. I have a lot of things planned though for when my friend comes into town next month. So you guys will get a couple of things that you've been requesting from me. I have a series that I'm recording. I'm not going to announce it yet in case things change or if some reason it gets unavailable all of a sudden. But I start filming for that after Love is Blind. So I finish Love is Blind, then I'll start recording for when I'm on vacation and we'll go from there. Nonstop over here, girlies. We're nonstop in motion, let me tell you. Okay. Now, that says, any thoughts on if merch will come back? No, I know I'm wearing my Human's Gonna Human sweater. No, merch, guys, merch is mostly fast fashion. And unless you have a lot of subscribers and a lot of money, there's no reason for me to engage in merch. I really appreciate that we tried it for a time, but there's basically no way to get you ethically sourced merch unless I have a lot of money, and I just don't have that. And I don't have a large enough audience, and I know you guys don't have the money. And ultimately, I'm not trying to sit here and ask you for $80 a sweater. Do you know what I mean? It's ridiculous. So I'm not about to do that to anybody. And that's the reality of merch. That's just the reality of doing merch online, right? I'd rather ask for that $10 for Discord because, at least we're having events every Sunday. Discord said, have you ever watched Sex Education? I really started watching it and I've been enjoying it. I've heard really good things about Sex Education, the show, the animated show. I've heard a lot of really good things. Yeah. I've heard a lot of really great things. Might be worth reviewing for members. I don't know. We'll see. But I've heard it's really nice. Now, does anyone have any questions at the top of the show before I jump into my first segment? Just that, is there another one? I don't think so. What was there? Isn't there like a sex education show that's a real person show about an Indian girl? Isn't that a show? Or Pakistani girl? I don't know what she is. Isn't there like a sex education? I remember putting something on my list about a brown girl about sex education, but I don't remember what it was. But I think there's the animated show is what you're thinking of. The guy with the funny, he's got like a funny jaw or something. Discord said, how do you find inner peace in a time like this? Chet said, yeah, I think there's a UK show. Yeah, there might have been, honestly. How do you find inner peace at a time like this? I think this is really going to move so well into the forgiveness conversation, honestly. Let me answer this from chat, and then I'll move into that question from Discord. YouTube chat says, have you seen the false flag conspiracy Kyle has been pushing lately in regards to Charlie Kirk? I do not know what you're referencing, if you mean Kyle Kulinski. We're going to cover a little bit of Kyle Kulinski today. I'm not a big fan of Kyle Kulinski. I'll be real with you. I fell off Kyle Kulinski years ago. I just find him deeply unprofessional. Even though people love him and he's been independently funded, I just find him to be such a dude bro. And I don't like that about him. So I have like a pretty strong criticism of Kyle, especially after today, because he's still like, to me, is just, again, I'm not doing the same thing he's doing. So this isn't coming from somebody criticizing him from inside the bubble. It's coming from outside the bubble. But we'll talk about it. Chet says, what makes Charlie Kirk's death and assassination than a murder? I don't know the legal differences between an assassination and a murder. I don't know what motivates, like what makes it different. I assume because he was a public speaker and he was speaking at a public event. I don't know the legal difference. I don't understand the word difference here, right? Chad says Kyle Kulinski is heavy on pushing Tyler Robinson not being the shooter. Look, I'm all about, I need the information and the facts. I have no reason to think he's not the shooter. He admitted to being the shooter. If he wants to believe he wasn't the shooter, I know some people are watching videos of Tyler jumping from the roof and saying, where's the gun? How does he have a gun? If he's walking, where's the gun? Guys, this is why I do philosophy, because I do not have time to spend my precious minutes on earth talking about was he the shooter, wasn't he the shooter? I mean, I don't know. That's just crazy to me. But I don't know. We can talk about it. Okay, let me do this. So Discord asked me this just now. How do you find inner peace at a time like this? And Discord also asked me to expand on my thoughts about forgiveness. So I'm going to wrap these two things together. So when we ask the question, how do we find peace at a time like this? There begs a question about the bubble differences, bubbles being perception, of which perception are you having a relationship with? And when do they coincide together, right? So obviously, there's you within the bubble that is your like country, state, family, your literal physical space. Like we have a very basic understanding of this. We know how to kind of understand our space within that. And then there's this understanding of you in the space of the universe. This one's much harder, right? But we have to remember that even though the world is crazy, it doesn't mean we have to be crazy along with it, okay? We can engage with the world and the world can definitely interact with us, but we are not obligated to be as crazy as the world. Even though the world is saying, how dare you try to avoid being crazy with the rest of us? You are morally obligated, the world says, to be just as miserable as the rest of us. And then they'll even try to use language that triggers you, like your privilege lets you not be as crazy as the rest of us. But see, here's the difference between being actually privileged because you can literally ignore the world because the world has no way to interact with you because you're so fucking high rich in your little tower. Okay, that's the difference between you saying, I understand the world and I have a relationship to the world, but the world's misery will not destroy me because I know that I am simply a part of the world. I am just as significant as the rock and as significant as the grass and as significant as the asteroid in space. But I do not have to. My soul, my spirit, use the word that resonates with you, your consciousness does not have to crumble around with the world just because the world is crumbling around you, right? So I think there's like this dilemma where we're not understanding that we are parts of a living world, right? We are all parts in the world. We are ourselves. We are on this planet. We are in the universe, okay? And you have to understand how you relate to each of those things. So, how do I maintain a sense of inner peace as the world crumbles around me? Well, I firstly accept I'm a biological creature, so I'm going to feel stressed. I'm going to feel upset. I'm going to mourn. So you breathe, you meditate, you pray, you do the thing for you that centers you in the chaos. You do not simply exist in a space in which, I've reached this threshold of, quote, enlightenment, and so therefore I'm never impacted by the world. I cried this morning watching videos of Lebanese victims from the pager blasts. When the pagers went off, I cried this morning over watching videos of them. Do I stop mourning because I have a sense of peace? No. My peace is in relationship to, right? Like in relationship to accepting that humans are going to human. And so let's move into forgiveness. Forgive the world for being human. Just like I believe there are no bad dogs, but sometimes a dog will rip your baby's face off. I don't really think there are any bad humans, even though sometimes humans are bad. It's because I believe in this idea that we are biological creatures and that we have limited to no real connection to our sense of free will. And it is so buried, our free will, our relationship with consciousness is so buried under the rubble of our misunderstanding of information, our relationship with ourselves, the relationship with the world around us. Okay, so check this out. I got a question from my Discord and I asked permission to show it to you guys today. So I'm going to do that. So this was the question I got from Discord after yesterday's stream ended. We talked about forgiveness. Discord said, I think it may just be a difference in language, but I was thinking about the forgiveness discussion at the end of stream. I appreciate that you're not encouraging anyone to accept bad behavior or abuse, but I think of forgiveness as something that must be earned through introspection and accountability, meaning the person who wronged you would have to earn it, right? Some folks will never reciprocate. So I don't think it's helpful to tell someone that they should forgive a person who will never have insight or never take accountability. It's not good to hold on to anger and resentment. I think it's healthy to work on releasing those things and moving on, but I don't think that needs to include forgiveness. I don't know. Is this just working with a different model of forgiveness? I'd love to hear anyone else's thoughts on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you my model of forgiveness, the one that freed me from honestly like all of the resentment and bitterness I had about existing in the world, because I definitely had that growing up. And I went to therapy and I did a lot of philosophical work. And that philosophical work gave me a framework that you might understand or know, but I'll share with you today. It's from the Mayo Clinic. This is mayoclinic.org. What is forgiveness? Forgiveness means different things to different people, but in general, it involves an intentional decision to let go of resentment and anger. The act that hurt or offended you might always be with you, but working on forgiveness can lessen that act's grip on you. It can help free you from the control of that person who harmed you. Sometimes forgiveness might even lead to feelings of understanding and empathy and compassion for the one who hurt you. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing the harm done to you. It also doesn't necessarily mean making up with the person who caused that harm. Forgiveness brings a kind of peace that allows you to focus on yourself and helps you go on with your life. So for me, forgiveness has nothing to do with the perpetrator of harm. When I say I've forgiven this person doesn't ever have to know that to be a fact. It is about me letting go of my bitterness and resentment of a person simply being a person. And because I believe, and this is my personal belief, that we're evolved animals on a planet evolved over millions of years, I can also accept that people are much like tornadoes. Sometimes they come through town and destroy everyone's houses and kill a few people, but it is within their nature to do so. And the question is, can we have a different relationship with our nature to change the maybe the amount of tornadoes we have to face in life? And that's the question, right? So I think forgiveness is for you. You know, I want to be mad for the world. I don't want to be mad at the world. I don't want to be bitter and resentful and assume that because the world is an ugly place, I get to be ugly too. I want to say, even though the world is ugly and even though the world is what it is, I know I'm not that person. So I know other people cannot be that person too. Because I have changed, I know other people can change. Because I have gotten better, I know other people can get better. Because I don't wish ill on people, I know there are people who don't wish ill on me, right? You're kind of using yourself as proof that people can be good. And the dilemma is that because so many of us aren't good, we can't use ourselves as proof of it. So you have to go through the journey where you use yourself as proof of it so you can have that data at hand. And you're not so special that your experience with being good isn't a universal experience for other people, right? So you first have to humble yourself and recognize you're not special. So if I can be good, I know you can be good because I'm not special. But it is a special relationship with self to be good in a world that is giving you every incentive to be bad. Right? Okay, Chad says, can you still feel sad that you were wronged after forgiving? 100%. Yeah, it's just you don't hate anybody. You don't have enemies. You're not angry. You're like, be angry in a sense of injustice, not angry at the person as a consciousness. This is something that people really don't understand, right? I've got a predator in the family and I can get very upset on behalf of the victims and people will say, oh, did they hurt you personally? Why are you so upset with them? I'm upset for the victims. And the fact that you're not upset for the victims is the problem. You're not upset enough for me for the victims. And they're like, it just sounds like you're really mad at this person. They don't understand the difference between hating the person who did the crime and being angry for the victims. And this is why the world is so messed up. Because we don't know the difference. And then we equate the two as the same. You must have really hated this person. And that's why you're so angry they did this horrible thing. It's like, no. I mean, maybe at one point in my life, but not anymore. Now I'm not mad at them. I'm mad for the victims. And there should be something so significant about that, right? Check out this video just to cleanse our palate, okay? And give us another grounding, right?
What do you do with the mad that you feel? When you feel so mad you could bite? When the whole wide world seems oh so wrong, and nothing you do seems very right. It's great to be able to stop when you've planned a thing that's wrong, and be able to do something else instead. I can stop when I want to, can stop when I wish, can stop anytime. And what a good feeling to feel like this, and know that the feeling is really mine.
Okay, just like a little breather, a little cleanse palate, a little palate cleanser. I want you to know that today is a great day to start being a good person, It's really difficult. It's really difficult to let go of anger and to know how to utilize it in a really good way, right? Because you don't want to be angry at someone. You want to be angry for the injustice, right? Okay, let me scroll up. I feel like I missed some pretty good comments here. Let me see. Any comments that let me see. I see a lot of good conversation happening. Does anybody have a specific question? I don't want to go through all of chat and figure out. It feels like there's a lot that you guys are talking about, which I love to see. Chat says that actually made me so sad because they're taking PBS away, and that's the kind of stuff we need in the world. Yeah, it is. It is really weird growing up with PBS my whole life. To this day, my nieces and nephews watch PBS, and yet my family still votes MAGA. It's all very confusing, Chat said so many people's social identities depend on their rage. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today, actually, because, there is just such a a call for anger. Even, and I think a big part of it is the patriarchy. And I know people hate that word because it's a buzzword, but it's not a buzzword. It's actually a system at play that perpetuates like forms of violence as key, as sort of like calls for liberation. But the issue I'm having with that is like liberation sometimes calls for violence, but violence isn't the key to liberation. We've been violent for all of human history and we're still not liberated. So it can't just be, quote, violence that causes the liberation, right? It must be something else. Like it has to be something else. It's not working. So if it's not working, it's got to be something else. Okay, check this video out.
History teaches me that change is always possible. Our ancestors changed a country that enslaved them for 400 years, hated them, undid Reconstruction with the Redemption Movement, hanged them, lynched them, brutalized them, took 100 years between the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to pass a Civil Rights Act and a Voting Rights Act that is now being destroyed again. We have lived through so much worse, with so fewer resources, with no resources. Harriet Tubman didn't have nothing except her will and the belief in God and a will to go on, right? And so if our ancestors could get us here such that they have something to deconstruct, if we didn't have anything, they couldn't take anything. And I would say the same thing for women. It took women until the 1970s to be able to open a bank account, the 1970s. It took women longer than it took black folks to essentially get freedom. But you got it. They couldn't take it from you if you didn't have it. They couldn't take your abortion rights if you didn't have them. And somebody fought for them. And so I think what we have to do is we have to train ourselves to be like our ancestors who did so much more with so much less. History teaches me.
This is something I've said on stream a lot of times, that I look to my ancestors and I look to a lot of people in struggle with so much less than me and see how capable they are. You know, my Discord asked me, do you feel safe streaming and talking about Charlie given the way everything is going? And the truth is like, if I don't, in my position of power, feel safe enough to speak up, knowing there might be consequences, it feels really weird for me to get up here and preach this whole time about doing something and being a good person. And it doesn't always have to come in the same shape, right? It's like you come the way, you show up the way that you can, right? So right now there's this whole thing happening with Jimmy Kimmel and Trump and him silencing people. Colbert's off the air. And look, I have plenty of criticisms for Kimmel and Colbert. Oh, I could go on for days about my criticisms of these people. But at the end of the day, there is something to be said about how easy it has been for the administration to pressure people to silence voices that have been there for so long, right? And if it's that easy, then it's going to be certainly easy for them to come for everybody else. And again, I want to bring down the levels of resentment and bitterness in the world by reminding people that it starts with you. It has to start with you. It has to. Now, of course, and I understand, we'll talk about Kyle Kulinski later in the stream. There are people who think, well, they're going to be dirty. They're going to be awful. They're going to be so ruthless. We got to be ruthless back. This cannot possibly be the answer, is it? I saw Michael Burns say that yesterday on stream, which I really appreciate Michael's voice in all of this, but he felt the same way about Kyle Kulinski. Like, really? Is this it? This is the greatest answer we have, is be as like horrible and use slurs just as much as the right? Like, this is your answer? And like, this can't be the answer. But it is always the answer people choose because it's the one that sounds the best. Because if the bully's going to bully you, you might as well bully them back, right? I get it. Right? I understand the desire to bully a bully back. But at some point, you just become the bully. So how do you bully a bully back without becoming a bully? That's really the philosophical quandary we are all very much struggling to answer. How do we do that? How is it even possible? And listen, I used to say this in the past, like, I don't mind bullying a bully. But the truth is like, I'm getting a little too wise to bully a bully. I just feel like there's no real wisdom in it. Self-defense doesn't feel like bullying. So if I believe in self-defense as a reasonable form of violence, then bullying doesn't make sense because bullying is not a form of self-defense, right? So then it doesn't make sense to bully bullies. Okay, now I can't bully bullies. Now what do I do? It's a real challenge. That's why I say being a good person is incredibly hard. It is incredibly difficult. And I wish people would understand that, because I think we take it for granted. Now, I'll often say, and you'll hear me say this, I've debated this on panels, that I think the world is good. I think most people are good. I think most people are good and most people are bad. And that is really difficult for people to handle. Okay. I saw somebody in my comment section say, if Charlie Kirk was a bad guy and slave owners were bad guys and enslaved people were right for killing their slave owners, their masters, then are you saying it's okay to kill Charlie? You know, I got to assume this person is speaking in bad faith, because if we're not allowed to call someone bad, unless that person is now okay to kill, then we certainly can never hold anybody accountable. If death is the only result for being a bad person, which I never think it should be, then we're never going to solve any problems, right? So again, I advocate for no death, okay, as the answer. Sometimes we have to choose some relationship with violence to move forward, right? And I know this is very hard because, again, depending on how we're having the conversation, this is why philosophy is so difficult for people, especially in a country where the average reading level is 7th grade, right? Okay, when we zoom in, we kill animals to eat, and that makes sense to us. And if we zoom out, bigger animals will eat us to feed themselves, and that can make sense. And then if we zoom out again, we end up killing that animal for killing us because it killed us to eat. Let's say a bear kills us. So we eat a chicken, and then the bear eats us, and then we kill the bear for eating us, right? Too bad the chicken doesn't ever get to get revenge, I suppose. But maybe revenge isn't the answer. Maybe a bear that eats you should also just be a bear that gets let go, because a bear is simply feeding its family. Much like when you kill the chicken, you are simply feeding your family, right? And then if you zoom out of that, then we're just like organisms floating on a planet, engaging in cycles of what is our biological experience. But then sometimes there's a way to pause, and there's a way to have a different relationship with the same reality, in which it's like honoring the cycle, a little Mufasa philosophy over here, the little cycle of life, right? There's like a little bit of relationship to an understanding in which builds sort of like a foundational idea of what it means to move forward in a way that makes sense. But it's like turtles all the way down. Robert Sapolsky talks about this all the time. You can't engage in a reality where you say, I have free will, and then choose that free will to be racist, and then be upset people are calling you a racist. So did Charlie Kirk have free will? And in his time alive, did he use that free will to be racist and homophobic and transphobic? In his time on Earth, engaging what he called free will, did he say that trans people were sick and that Palestinians didn't have buildings to throw gay people off of anymore? And did he say that black women, specifically Michelle Obama, did not have the brain processing power to be in the status of, or to be at the job that she had, even though she went to Ivy League school and was a lawyer and all this stuff, okay? Like, on your time onto the planet, is that how you used your free will? And then the question is, do we even have free will? Well, it depends, because if you're in psychosis, how much free will could you have? If you're having a stroke, how much free will do you have? Hey, buddy, just stop having a stroke, huh? And then people will say, well, like, they didn't have a choice. Oh, but they had a choice to be gay. Even though people keep telling you, nah, dude, it's just how I'm born. It's chill, bro. No. You have a choice in being gay. So I have a choice in being gay, but I don't have a choice when I have a stroke. But you had a choice to not be racist, but you chose to be racist. Okay, what about killing animals? Is it necessary to kill animals? Most of the time, most of us are definitely in a privileged position where we absolutely do not need to be killing animals. But why do we kill animals? Because we experience a relationship with, well, gluttony sometimes. This idea of spending $1,000 on a meal at a Michelin star restaurant to have a pig that's been, it somehow turned inside out so we can enjoy a smoked animal in a way that we've never thought of before. It's like, okay. I'm not even opposed to you guys doing these things. I'm just saying, why are you doing them? Are you asking yourself? Are you having a good relationship too? And I'm not saying fix yourself today or fix yourself tomorrow. I'm saying, do you ever wonder if you need to be fixed? And then what does fixed even mean in a world that's so ableist? They want to fix people for simply being autistic. And then what does it mean to be autistic and know that it's a disability? And then what does it even mean to say I want to fix my brain because I have a disability, and then to say that people with disabilities need to be fixed? We're in a constant cycle of not knowing what the right thing to do is. And then we have the idea that we can sit here with our microphones and then make prescriptions to people about the right thing. Do we know what the right thing to do is? And that's why I cite on caution, because even though I'm not a vegan, I eat sort of a vegan diet, right? I eat plant-based diet, but I'm doing it because I might be vegan one day. And I figure until I know the ethical answer in terms of eating meat and eating animals, I'm going to wait, right? Until that day. I don't know if I'll be vegan one day, but I know that until I figure it out, I'm going to eat a vegan diet, or I'm going to eat vegan, or engage in like vegan philosophical actions. And this is because I am not sure yet, versus other people's brains work with, I'm not sure yet, so I'm just going to keep eating meat until I figure it out. Fine. But this is my version of harm reduction. Until I am sure, I'm going to choose the path of the least or the most harm reduction. So again, when we have conversations about making the world a better place and being a good person and showing up in the world and having a place in the world, we first have to accept that we already have a place in the world because we're born here. That's the biological experience. Then we have to accept that we have to then find, this is the intellectual sort of embodied experience, find a place in the world, our meaning. Our meaning. And that is what is so devastating, right? Like, that is what becomes so difficult. And so we become nihilistic, or we become just susceptible to the propaganda. It's why, like, on the internet, we'll talk about this today, men are targeted the hardest using dude bro podcasts of guys who are just like talking about video games, and then all of a sudden they're like, trans people, am I right? Ew. And then all of a sudden the boys who signed up to listen about video games are all of a sudden being like, yeah, trans people are weird. And that's how it starts, and that's how it begins, okay? And then it becomes what it is now. They get you with things you like, hobbies. That's why Trump appeared on Aiden Ross's podcast. Hey, I'm just Trump. I'm on a podcast. That's why Trump ended up with Logan Paul and Mike, because he's just a guy. And I remember, and I told you that, oh my God, he's so good on these podcasts. Boys will eat this up. And they do, because their best friends remind them of Trump or Charlie Kirk. Remember, my brother said to me, my friends remind me of Charlie Kirk. Interesting that your friends remind you of Charlie, so you're sad about Charlie, but your 3 gay siblings, right, are being targeted by this administration, and you're not upset about it. You're not moved to the same amount of tears when a gay person is targeted or killed, or a trans person is targeted and killed, or when our basic rights are being taken away, because you have to vote with your religion, and your religion is homophobic. So instead of deconstructing the religion, you're just going to default to this thing. That's devastating. What a devastating experience. What an absolutely devastating experience. You know, a lot of people told me all of my life, don't worry, Brittany, like one day your parents will realize they were wrong. They have 3 gay kids. And that's why I went to therapy, guys. So my therapist could give me the tools to recognize that that was never going to happen, and that was okay. Not okay in an ethical sense, but okay for me, that my life was allowed to be good, and I was allowed to be kind to them and love them and still give them kindness and care, even though they would never do the same back. Because what they do doesn't dictate what I do. What they do does not dictate what I do. And so I'm not just coming from a place of a girl who doesn't understand where you're coming from and how hard it is. I'm coming from a place of a girl who was exactly where you were, and I yet still manage to take a deep breath and enjoy my life. And to be grateful for the privilege that I'm in. Because ultimately, if you are in America, you are experiencing a level of privilege. And then you can still be upset about how disgusting America is being right now. So you have to have a humility that's really difficult. You have to first really acknowledge how privileged you are being born in America, which is so hard, right? But once you accept that, you can also accept the fact that you're struggling in America as well, that you cannot pay your bills. You all have to work 2 jobs. Everything is so stressful. Healthcare is ridiculous. You're going bankrupt. And the administration is so corrupt that it makes you afraid every day for your life. Like, all of those 3 things are true at the same time. So then we have to zoom out and recognize, like, everything is true at the same time. That conservatives are right to be scared of corrupt governments. They just aren't sure who the bad guy is, right? We talked about this in my comment sections, okay? We talked about it in my comment sections. We talked about Katniss and the Capitol, and we talked about conservatives being the Capitol. So obviously, most conservative voters are just being tricked by the Capitol to think that one day they will be there with them, right? When they're never going to get there. They're never going to be there. So instead of understanding that they're voting for the elite and supporting the elite, the 1%ers, the billionaires, they will never become. They live in a fantasy land of maybe being there one day. And I know, because I was raised in that bubble and I thought about it myself. I can't tell you how many of my siblings call me and say like, I think I'm going to be a billionaire. Girl, they don't understand. And the same way I didn't understand. Until you actually educate yourself on what it means to be a billionaire, you're not going to get it. And how can I be mad at a world that doesn't even know left from right? I can't be. So how do I stay peaceful in a time like this, accepting that this is exactly how the world was always going to be? Because it's exactly who we are. We are a reflection of the world as a whole. We as a collective. And then making peace with that allows me to wake up every day and do the right thing. Not perfectly, but at least in the right direction. So take a deep breath, okay? Take a deep breath and realize like you're never going to do this thing. You're never going to, at the expense of other people, trick them. You're never going to create a business that lies to people. You're never going to misuse your relationship with people. And so you will die a good person. And you'll also probably die a poor person. And you might even die a targeted person. And you might even die in a situation that is so scary. But know that you will die a good person. And I still think that's better than anything else. But that's my values. Those are my values. You don't have to adhere to those values. You don't have to pick those values. You know, when we were kids and we were asked, what would you do if Nazis came to the door looking for the Jews? Everybody said they would hide the Jews. But we know not everybody hid the Jews. We know that other Jews turned in other Jews because people are afraid when there's a gun pointed in their face. That when it comes to their family or your family, often you will pick your family over theirs. We know it is very hard to protect other people. We know it's very hard to do the right thing. So I say to you, like, first recognize how hard it is to be a good person, and then take a deep breath because you probably are. But also, it is hard. It is really, really hard. You know? Just as we know Germans turned in other Germans for hiding the Jews, we know ultimately that Hitler rose to power, like, you know, they say Hitler rose to power using the radio. Trump is rising to power using the internet. Like, ultimately, if people aren't reading and people aren't educating themselves and people aren't understanding, again, if my conservative family won't watch the documentaries I'm watching, won't read the books I'm reading, won't actually engage in the information I have, then they are purposely shielding themselves from the information. But I read their books. I watch their news stations. So sometimes people ask me, Brittany, why do you watch all these guys? Because I got to know what my family is watching, bro. If my brothers come to me and say, oh, Britt, I've been watching this podcast, I'm going to go watch 100 episodes of that podcast. And that's the difference between me and them. Because when I say, hey guys, I've been watching this podcast, they go, gay. I'm not watching that. They are literally with their full chest saying, I don't want to know. And I'm with my full chest saying, like, let me know give me it. I'm like the parent that actually goes, what are you watching online? Give it to me. I want to watch it. What are you watching? And that's the difference. Okay? That's the difference. All right? Chess says, that sounds like a high blood pressure relationship. I mean, definitely. Definitely. My brother and I are going to have a conversation next week about seeing each other. And I want them to understand, like, you don't see me, and I want to see if you can get it. And yes, this is my role in the family, is to say, you don't understand me. I'm going to give you another chance. Go ahead. Same thing I do on stream with other people. You don't see me. Go ahead. Because I will tell you right now, if you can see me clearly and disagree with me, I will accept it. But until you can see me clearly, you're not allowed to disagree with me. You're not allowed to, because you're not disagreeing with anything. You have to be able to see me first. Okay? You have to be able to see me first, and then I'll accept it. This is the only time. Otherwise, I'm going to write you off as ignorant. If you don't want to be written off as ignorant, explain my ideas to me. Okay? Chet says, would you call them shielding themselves from other bubbles coping? A bit, right? It's just natural too. It's very biologically natural. It's very reasonable for them to want to do that, right? Because it's scary, just like it is with any of us. Hell, I meet progressives that also need to pop bubbles, guys. Like, I meet progressives every day that I'm like, pop your bubble. You're too miserable. For a progressive, you're way too miserable. You know, so it's like, it's that. It's a human condition. Everybody, myself, everyone suffers from it. Chat says, do they have good intentions? Who? My siblings? Like my brother who wants to talk to me? they have what they perceive as good intentions. I've been trying to do this thing lately with my siblings where when they say things like, yeah, both sides have problems, I go, that's an unacceptable commentary. Give me that's you trying to not have the conversation. Oh, both sides have problems. Okay. No. Let's talk about it. Because that doesn't mean anything, but it sure sounds good, right? Because it's meant to appease your upsetness. So let's say two people are arguing and you go, hey dude, both sides have problems. And you go, yeah, okay. So now I'm not the only one taking the responsibility. It feels better than you saying, actually, your side fucking sucks. Then it feels like, hey, we both have problems. So when people say that, oh, we both sides have problems, it's not a real conversation. Imagine you're in a marriage and you go to your spouse and you say, hey, I've noticed that when you get your coffee in the morning, you tend to spill some on the floor and it leaves a stain on the floor and then somebody has to wipe it up. Could you just wipe it up when you spill initially? And they're like, hey, we both have problems. You know, sometimes you sleep in 30 minutes later than me. It's like, did you need me to wake up earlier? And it's like, yeah, it'd be nice if we woke up together. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. I'll wake up in the morning with you too. Okay, cool. And then they still don't wipe up the spill on the floor. It's like, these things are not the same. But if you wanted me to wait, it's like they pick a problem that like, this is not the same. Or a more political example would be something like, hey, there's problems on both sides. I was like, yeah, but like, I'm really concerned for trans people and gay people because they're being targeted right now. Or Hispanic communities are being kidnapped off the street. And they go, yeah, dude, but there's problems on both sides. Like, did you see those protesters who just interrupted Trump's dinner and they were like yelling at him over Palestine? And they're like, do you think a president should be able to have a dinner without being interrupted? It's like, sure, it'd be nice if they could go to dinner without being protested. And they go, okay, so there are problems on both sides. It's like, these are not the same. And that's what we need. We need to be able to be like, what is the same? Okay, or another example I've heard from my own mother. Don't you think Christian churches are just being targeted by people? And I'm like, are they? She goes, yeah, this was years ago. She goes, yeah, we've started oh, you'll never believe what it was over. Wait, pause. This is so much funnier. This is fun. This is not funny. When there was that horrible shooting at the black churches by that white supremacist, my mother goes, oh, they're targeting Christian churches. I was like, they're not targeting Christian churches. They're targeting black churches. And she goes, well, now we're really afraid. So we've amped up security. Your father and all the men in the church walk around their church perimeter now with guns. And I'm like, nobody's going to shoot up your Catholic church. She goes, but they're targeting churches. And I was like, they're targeting black churches. You don't have a black church. You have a Filipino church because you're Catholic. You don't even have a black church. And then that's the argument, right? That's the misunderstanding of like, oh, they're targeting Christian churches. They're not targeting Christian churches. You know what I mean? Like that's why the conversation never gets anywhere because they don't really understand it. Right? Chad said, Britt, how do you know when you're getting the right information? I've been talking to family about Kirk and we all have different facts. Nobody is going to have the right information on Kirk. That is not what we should be talking about. We should be talking about right and wrong in relation to ethics. None of us can have the information on Kirk because none of us know him or were there. None of us know what the shooter was thinking. None of us have any of those facts. It is impossible to know anything about that situation for facts. We can come to conclusions based off data, but we do not know anything. And we will not know anything unless we personally talk to Tyler, unless he confesses with a really clear manifesto. We do not know. The bigger and more important conversation we should be having is what is right and what is wrong. We agree shooting Kirk was wrong because that's like the easiest fucking stance to take. Whoa, super brave guys. Shooting people in the public square, wrong. We're so fucking brave. Now, if it is wrong to shoot Kirk, is it also wrong for cops to shoot people running away from them? Yes. Yes, it is. Why? Because shooting people is wrong. When is it okay to shoot somebody? In very rare, very seldom happening situations in which it is direct self-defense. Okay? So that's the dilemma we're having is like, we're not willing to say that it is wrong to shoot people. What was that man's name? Castile? the nurse, he had a gun, a legal firearm in his car, and a cop just... That was wrong. Gun owners everywhere should have been so fucking pissed. I should have heard that man's name out of my dad's lips 100 times because of how wrong that situation was. And yet we don't. And yet they don't care because he was black. And that's the racism of it all. Is it wrong for police officers to shoot people, whether they legally have guns or are running away from them? Again, this is so much bigger. This is so devastatingly bigger than Charlie Kirk or anything else. This is a lack of ethical understanding. Ethics, society, morals, yourself. You don't know your own morals. And so your lack of morals ends up coming out in the ethics of it all, right? So again, we have to, thank you, Philando Castillo. I feel like I'm saying that so wrong. Why do I feel like I'm butchering the fuck out of that name? He was shot just sitting in his car. He said, I have a firearm. Okay, I have a firearm. He let the police officer know. And the police, Castillo. Thank you. Philando Castillo. God, I gotta go to speech therapy, bro. I gotta go to speech therapy. Thank you. It's a really devastating video. If you rewatch it, it's really sad. Okay. So again, we have to have those conversations. We have to be able to say, we have an issue in this country, and Charlie Kirk participated, right, in escalating those tensions between people, right? Just as you said, Charlie Kirk got rich on wanting you to die. When? Are you a troll, bro? Hide user from channel. You're banned. Thank you. That's devastating. Rich men get rich over work. Do you know how people talk about Switzerland during Hitler? You know what I mean? And how they weren't involved and how they but they were literally selling, I think they were selling, what was it, dishes or weapons to both sides. That's what I think of life is. Yeah, rich off Nazi gold. Exactly. Rich off Nazi gold. That's what I think about all the time. You might sit there and be like, oh, I have no I don't want to get involved. I'm not involved, but you're benefiting from it. You know what I mean? Yeah, they were both siding. Exactly. It's like when I think about that and I think about that idea, that's what I mean when I say nobody has any ethical standing. You want to, on the cover, have the perception of being, oh, I'm not involved, but you are so deeply involved and you're benefiting from it. So that's what I think about all the time, okay? When we talk about forgiveness, when we talk about ethics, when we talk about how to remain peaceful. And again, it's not about coping and running away. It's about radically accepting. Listen, if you ever have somebody in the family that's kind of a liar, they're a fibber, but you love them so much, you're vibing with them and you love them, but you also know they have a tendency to lie about stuff. You're like, okay, bro, sure. And you kind of just let them get away with it. Because no matter what you do, they can't ever admit they were lying. This is not always malicious, because it's actually a problem with themselves. It's not always a maliciousness, but at some point you're allowed to just say, yeah, until you figure that out, you're not safe. You're not reliable. I have to be able to rely on you. And so you have to first be able to say, I'm at fault. This is why Trump is so unnerving to people. The reason Trump is so uncomfortable for people is because Trump genuinely struggles to identify himself ever doing wrong, right? He can't do it. And so it's very hard for people to process that without feeling a little bit crazy, because it is a little bit crazy, right? Did you guys see this just happened? Trump statue holding Bitcoin appears in U.S. Capitol. Look at this. Who the fuck put this up? What in the world is happening? 12-foot statue was unveiled, sorry, oh my God, just hours before the Federal Reserve interest rate decision was announced. What? Who put this here? Ridiculous, okay? So again, when we have these conversations and we're trying to figure out the state of the world and our place in it, just know you have the right to feel like we're in Crazyville, but it's always been crazy. Like, have you heard stories about the founding fathers and Christopher Columbus and people who dealt with natives or enslaved people eating them or engaging in making furniture out of their bodies, their skin and their hair? Y'all, I can't even get people in my family to agree that child marriage was like unethically wrong. As they sit here and talk about how like gay people are evil because they'll want to marry kids, and yet the straight people are doing it left and right. Like, we need to realize that it's always been bad, but we exist, and I know I'm good, so I know you're good, and I know other people are good. And so we need to understand that we are not special, but this is our opportunity to encourage people to be good as well, and to acknowledge that it's hard, because life is not easy, but life does get better because you get better, right? Okay, let's take a deep breather from this conversation and listen to a child's story. All right? Deep breath, everybody.
Monster couldn't believe his luck. He was desperate to get everyone. Once upon a time, the fat orange monster couldn't believe his luck. He was desperate to get everyone to stop talking about the spell book. And then the best thing ever happened. Hooray! Someone died! It was really public. Everyone saw it. And best yet, that person loved the fat orange monster. I can use this. The fat orange monster laughed. He ran up and down the halls of his castle, so happy, so excited. That's it, he exclaimed. Finally, I can make everyone angry about something that isn't me. He stood out on his balcony and yelled to the townsfolk, "Good news, everybody! That one guy died, and the people I don't like did it. Let's all hate them. This is the best day ever." And then one guy yelled back, "Excuse me, Mr. Fat Orange Monster, where's the spell book?" God darn it, people, I'm building a statue, okay? I'm building a goddamn statue, and that'll make you stop talking about that spell book. But the people wouldn't stop asking, and they never will.
Okay, was that a nice cleanser? Whew. All right, nice little cleanser. Nice little cleanser. Okay, let's go into this. I want to talk about the struggle in thinking, because we do struggle to think. So why do we struggle to think critically? Because it's kind of like almost like a talking point at this point, right? Like, oh, got to think critically. Everyone thinks they're thinking critically. But if everyone thinks they're thinking critically and everyone thinks they're a good person, then why are all the bad things happening? Why are all the bad things happening? Okay, I found this little TikTok here. I thought this was interesting.
Seeing in real time that we are seeing in real time that how we were taught to think is going to like take us down in real time. For example, CK being taken down, the right immediately is like, oh, well, it was the left. And there's like no room to explore like up, down, further right. It's an immediate like reactionary thought. And like we're seeing immediately with like Candace Owens, like she makes one video that's like pushing against people on the right. And now immediately the left is like, oh my God, queen, work, slay. Because like our thought itself is very attuned to like enjoy kind of capitalism, this kind of takedown, immediate up-down situation. And what I mean by that is like indigenous thought makes you always think about the entire system. Reactionary thought is like, why did this person do this? Trying to get to that one person's motive. Whereas systemic thought is like, what were the systems in place that led to this specific outcome? Because until we look at systemic infrastructure and how it operates, then like everything is just going to kind of mirror this like capitalist grift. Like everyone can just keep changing alliances and shifting around, and those people that are doing it get to continue to kind of like ride the wave, while the only people that suffer are the people affected by the system.
So I think this is like a really nice grounding kind of thought, because again, I see people go, Brittany, like Candace Owens is coming out and speaking on Charlie Kirk, and Brittany, oh my God, there's like all these messages about pro-Palestine from Candace. Guys, can you not lock in for a second and realize this grifter has been utilizing your attention all of these years, and you don't think she's doing it now? You don't all of a sudden, again, accountability doesn't allow Candace Owens to all of a sudden be a good person because she's pro-Palestinian. Because being pro-Palestine can also be a white nationalist talking point. I know you guys don't realize this because a lot of people don't on the internet. And this is like when the internet just learns about, not the internet, but normies learn about groypers, right? Like, guys, there is a pipeline that makes you a white nationalist and a trans person. There is a pipeline that makes you pro-Palestine and white nationalist. There is a pipeline that makes you white nationalist and pro-Israel. And it's really hard for people to understand, right? Like, it is really difficult for people to understand because, like, we're taught that white nationalists hate Jews. So
Once upon a time,
hold on.
the fat
Let me get you that guy's channel. You asked for it. So that's the dilemma we're having. Oh, hold on. Let me go to my profile and grab it before I forget. People don't understand you can be both because we're taught simple ideas about these things. Oh, white nationalists hate Jews, so they'll never support Israel or Palestinians. But that's not true. And that's what's confusing. Oh, trans people will never be Republican or conservative. That's also not true. It's like you think it's true because it sounds right? Here's Candace Owens. All these clips are going viral. Everyone is obsessed, right?
Concerned.
Hold on, let me get the voice.
In May, Charlie was concerned about Israel and their influence on American politics.
But Charlie Kirk also said that the funniest thing about seeing a person have the gay flag next to the Palestinian flag is that Palestinians would throw gay people off roofs, but at least now they don't have roofs to throw you off of. So do I care that Charlie Kirk all of a sudden was like, hey, Israel's kind of shitty? Is he thinking they're shitty because they're genociding people? Or does he think they're shitty for another reason?
And how they were pushing things that he felt were in conflict with his beliefs, free speech here in America. Bibi's holding it up like Charlie just in May said, hey.
Okay, so he's not upset that Israel is genociding Palestinians. He's upset that Netanyahu is making his speech limited. Got it.
You know what? I just want to write a love letter to Israel. That's how it was presented. Would you guys agree? That's not how it happened. Charlie, from a month ago, speaking about the kind of pressure that he was under, because I think that will also help to further contextualize this.
I'm an American citizen. Yes, I want Israel to win. Yes, I'm a Christian. But like some of the mess, and you've seen how I've been treated, Megan, by some, not all, by some.
No, it's very irritating.
It's
been
almost
so
as if
unfair. They were coming after you after Turning Point for, among other things, that you had Dave Smith there. Dave Smith is allowed to criticize Israel. You had both sides. The Israeli.
Is this Megyn Kelly, who said some of the most horrendous shit in the last 12 months? You know, Candace got so in trouble. Remember, Megyn Kelly got in a fight with Trump, right? Remember when Trump came for Megyn Kelly? And then all of a sudden, Megyn Kelly, all of her talking points are pro-Trump. She says some of the most disgusting. I've never seen a woman. I've been watching Megyn Kelly since I was a kid. I've never seen a woman go so downhill so quickly. But there you are. And it's a grift. I'm telling you right now, none of these people have values. None of these people actually have values. Candace Owens talks about how being a mom is the best job in the world, and yet she maintains her job as a YouTuber. She's literally married into one of the wealthiest families in the world. Yeah, you obviously think being a mom isn't the greatest job in the world. Otherwise, you would stop everything you're doing and go do it full time. Why are you still showing up to work? Why are you working as many hours you are? Why are you doing both? When you're telling women every day not to do both. The same people, Charlie Kirk said women should go to college to find husbands and should work on being wives, and yet his wife is out here leading the charge. You never do what you say. See how they don't actually have values? They actually don't have those values. That is not your value.
Side was
You're not allowed to,
overrepresented.
though. No, you're not allowed to. It's even worse than that. Again, I just want to repeat for the 5th time. I love Israel.
And of course, Candace Owens is being sued by Macron and his wife because she's dedicated all of her time to saying that the wife is a trans person. Like, this is the same Candace Owens you guys want me to be super excited is all of a sudden anti-Netanyahu? That Candace Owens? No.
I want Israel to win. But my moral character is now being put into question, Megan. Not my decisions. Not like, hey, are you doing this? Is it smart or is it dumb? But no, I am a bad person if I do this. And I could go. I mean, you saw it, Megan. It was trending.
So he's a bad person if he does those things, but he's not a bad person for anything else he's done. Cool.
On Twitter, thousands of tweets and text messages. And if I were to be charitable and generous, I will say the people that are attacking me are in a hyper paranoid state because they're at war, and war tends to make things black and white. And you're a hammer looking for a nail. So I'm trying to be charitable, Megan. Literally, I'm trying to cut as much slack as I can, right? Like, okay, what would it be like if all of a sudden I'm starting to see a pattern of behavior similar to what my grandparents saw in 1930s Germany online?
Oh, so now Netanyahu is a genocidal maniac. When he starts to silence Charlie Kirk's voice, but not before. Got it.
How would I behave? So that's like my charitable kind of overcompensation.
And by the way, guys, I don't want you to be pro-Palestine because you hate Jews. That's not helpful. All those memes about we owe Germany an apology, that's not funny. And every single person who writes that is a bad person. Every single person that writes that meme on social media, we owe Germany an apology, yeah, you're a bad person. Okay? That's really, really awful. And I assume most of those are kids probably. But that's not even funny. It is no good to Palestinians to be pro-Palestine if it means you hate Jewish people for being Jews. Like, that's not helpful. Okay? It's literally not helpful. So again, why are we struggling to think critically? And it's really because we as Americans bought into one of the greatest lies ever. And that's our origin story. Our origin story is so bad. Right?
Guys, pay attention, please, because... Now, guys, pay attention, please, because...
The volume is so low on this, but check it out. Hold on.
Now, guys, pay attention, please, because we've gone over this like a million times, but it just seems like you guys aren't getting it. So, once again, sailors with belt buckle hats discovered a new continent, right? And after being the very first humans to ever step foot on this sacred land, they shared corn with the humans that had lived here already somehow, who then disappeared because they didn't know who Jesus was. Okay, so then after that, the sailors declared independence from England because the sailors were better friends with God than England was. Then 4 nice dads wrote a new Bible called the Constitution, and the Civil War happened because of slaves. There were slaves, but it was no one's fault, and both sides won. And then we beat the Nazis. At some point, we tripped and fell on Vietnam, but we learned our lesson. And then we all got rich off computers. Okay, any questions? Because I really don't want to go over this again. It's been like 5 years in a row. Is that really what happened? Yeah, that's all true.
And I think that's the dilemma. Like, our origin story is so twisted. Our understanding of our history and who we are is so twisted. And guys, let me say this again for the 18th billionth time. American history and world history is like your family history. Okay? One day, if you grew up in a family like I did, okay, there's the kids table. Okay? There's the big kids table. Big kids. Okay? Wow, that's a really bad K. And then there's the adults table. And, you know, when you're kids, you're like, my family's great and my parents are awesome. And oh my gosh. And then you get to the big kids table. You're like, oh my gosh, somebody had sex before marriage. Whoa. And then you get to this table and you realize, oh my God, grandpa was an adult when he married grandma and she was a fucking minor. Holy shit. Wait a second. My parents are racist. Okay. That's what history is. History is like, we're just America and we founded this country and we got together with the natives and we ate corn together. Then it's like, oh, actually, we brought disease and killed so many of them and also like took over their land. And then it's like, wait, there's a whole system of white supremacy that's literally controlling all of us. Okay. So when I tell you right now, if I cannot get my family to see the error of their ways, I don't know how you expect me to get billions of people on this floating rock to get it. Because it took me over 30 years to even process that information. Me. This is why I say I know that it took me 30 years to actually understand all of this. So then I was like, wait a second. And now I'm still learning and deconstructing. But guys, 30 years. Okay, so if you understand my journey, I was here at the big kids table for most of my adult life. And I thought I understood the world. And now that I'm here, okay, so I'm officially at the adult table. Okay, I'm officially at the adult table, but with none of the wisdom. You can't see, but I'm writing the word wisdom. I am at the adult table and I have none of the earned wisdom because I haven't been around long enough and I don't know enough yet. Okay? It took me all of that time. I was just sitting at the big kids table like, I know what's going on. And then I got to the adult table and I'm like, wait a second. Hold up. And now I'm still like, okay, what now? Well, what now is I'm 36 and I don't know that much yet. But at least I know that, so I'm working on it. But if you're moving through life thinking I already know everything, well, you're definitely not going to do any more work to deconstruct. So first, we must admit that we don't know anything. Then we must admit that we're probably going to be wrong about some stuff. And then we're going to have to admit that it's going to take effort and it's going to be really hard to learn some stuff. And then we have to admit that we're going to die not knowing any stuff. So really, it's all just about not knowing some stuff. And that's really, really hard for people to know. I don't know some stuff. If you've ever talked to your parents, if they're like mine, they'll say, what do you think, I'm stupid? Well, listen, it's not about being stupid, but we definitely don't know some stuff. My mom is still convinced my IUD causes abortions. I have a Nexplanon, and she goes, well, doesn't that cause you to have abortions? I was like, Mom, I have a period every fucking month. And she goes, are you sure? Doesn't it stop your period? No, I have a period every fucking month. I'm literally always bleeding. And she was like, are you sure? Bro, it's like, do the research. You can Google. Google is your friend, y'all. Google is your friend. And you can't just read the first 10 links. Just deep dive. Go into different websites. I cannot tell you. Sometimes I'll see things posted and they'll be like, hey, Bray, what do you think about this? I'm like, hold on. And I'll go look at it and I'm like, okay, let's talk about it. Okay, so again, I just think there's like this lack of curiosity that is universal. I don't think my family's special. I don't think you're special. I don't think anyone's special. I think this is just what life is. That's what I'm saying. This is life, and that's okay. First, you have to be okay with the fact that like this is life, isn't it? Okay, what are we going to do about it? But the dilemma is like when you're in so much pain, you're like, this is not okay. This is not okay. But first, you must accept that it is okay. And then do something about it. Because if you are in your anger, if you're in your trauma, if you're in your, then it not being okay, you'll only know how to react to it in that trauma. But that's not going to be helpful to you or them. Okay? So first, it is okay. And then we do something about it because it's not okay. But I know this is hard to understand, like forgiveness, going back to the beginning of stream, forgiveness isn't, I forgive you, so everything's wiped clean. You're not Christ, girl. You're not saving them from their sins, okay? You're not a priest absolving bitches from their sins, okay? You are saying to them, I forgive you for the sake of myself, to let go of the bitterness and resentment I have towards this person, and to know that I am separate from their actions. It's like when someone cheats on you, you're really pissed at first. You feel so fucking blindsided and betrayed. And you go, oh my God, was it me? Am I the reason? And then you go to therapy and realize, oh shit, this has nothing to do with me. This is not about me. At the end of the day, that person chose to cheat. It's like when you're raped and you're like, this must have been my fault. Why was I at that party? Why did I drink so much? Why did I dress that way? Why did I flirt? Why did I even make eye contact with anybody? Why did I even leave the house? And then you realize, wait a second. At the end of the day, the rapist is responsible. It is not my fault I was raped. But you have to understand we live in a world where people think they're responsible for their rapes. And then people say, well, what were you doing? When you bring up the Catholic Church, they'll say, well, you know, some of those kids really put the priest in weird positions. Well, don't you think these kids are lying? Don't you think some of these kids are lying? These are all conversations I've had with people in my life. And the worst part is like they really think it, because God forbid they don't, then they'd really have to do something different with their life. Same thing, and not analogous, but stay with me here. On the same side of the coin that creates a thought system that allows you to blame the kids over the priests is the same part of the nihilistic thought system that allows you to give up on actually trying to make your life better. It's an inability and a rejection of actually facing your reality. And so I say to you, whether you believe you'll never have a good life, or you believe the life you've chosen is perfect and you refuse to engage in any part of it that's bad, it's the same blindness. Okay? It's the same blindness. And I'm saying you have got to exist outside of them. Okay? You have got to make a decision. And this is really difficult because you can't just make the decision logically. It has to be an embodied experience, okay? You can move through life thinking everything is perfect, okay? Move through life thinking everything is bad, or decide to separate from both of those things and move through life accepting that, like, this is life. And now there are so many possibilities. And now there are so many possibilities. Because as long as life is perfect, there's no need for change. As long as it's always going to be bad, there's no need for change. But if this is life, then that opens up billions and billions and billions of options. Many of those options being making peace, being loving, being kind, and being compassionate. Many of those choices also not being that. But if we're on this floating rock in space, then we have every reason to be kinder to each other, not more reasons to be cruel. If your default belief, and this is the problem with nihilism, is nothing matters, nothing we do matters, we're just on a floating rock in space, that is your philosophical limitation, not mine. Yes, I think it's a part of growing up and processing information, but a bigger part of realizing like life is exactly the way it is frees you into being something else. As an example, and this might be hard to process, but like it's kind of this idea that like, have you ever seen those TikToks or something where it's like reminder that you have free will and you cut the piece of pie like in a weird way, or you just start dancing in public because you realize you can do whatever you want? Yeah, you can also not kill that guy. Also not, vote for that man. You can also make a better decision about how to treat her. You can also be kinder to your kids. You can also heal your trauma by not having them. You can also feed somebody today and clothe somebody today. Like with all of this free will, and you decide to do what with it, right? And again, I think this conversation is hard for people because they really do feel trapped. They feel like there's nothing they can do. They feel like they have to follow this social script that says, this is my, this is my path and this is what I have to do. And this is why people are radicalized so easily, because you get online, you feel angry, they validate your anger, and you feel like you have a space. Because that's what we did when we left our religious homes. We went to the spaces that embraced us, but I also hope you outgrew them. I also hope you realize that the spaces that embraced you because you were angry at your family, you outgrew them once you were peaceful. You outgrew them once you were healed. Because those spaces are necessary when you're angry. What happens when you stop being angry and the space is still so angry, right? Now, of course, for a lot of people, they get trapped in that anger and they never get out. But my recommendation is always to get out of the angry space into something better. I'm going to sneeze. Holy fuck. Oh my God. It's tickling my nose. It's crazy. Oh my God. I have the craziest. Oh, it feels like a Pepsi can, bro. It feels like a Pepsi can. Hold on. To your wishes. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you. Oh my God. Oh, girl. Hold on. My face is on fire. My face is on fire. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh. I have snot on my face. I'm sorry. Oh my God, excuse me. Oh my God. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. It feels like a Pepsi can goes boom into my face and it comes out of nowhere. It's the worst feeling in the whole world. Wait, chat said something really good. I'm learning the difference between being attached to the good outcomes and being excited for the possibilities. Be excited. Be excited. Be excited for the possibilities, because God, there's so many. There are so many. But it will take time to also integrate. Again, nothing's going to happen overnight. Nothing's going to, I saw this live stream and it hit me. Sometimes it happens that way. But most of the time, it's something that happens over time. It hits you at a different moment. It's not like, I'm going to read this book and it's going to change my life. It's also why I get a little worried when people are like, Brit, what book should I read? What movie should I watch? It's more like, what tool can I utilize to see if it helps me? Oh my God, I'm going to sneeze again. Bro. Hello? Yes, all of them, exactly. Right? Chad says, what does it mean to stay excited but unattached to the outcome? You're excited for the possibilities, but if they don't happen, you're not crushed. It's like, oh my God, I'm really excited to try this cake. I wonder if I'll like it. Versus, I'm so excited to try this cake. I better like it. Well, what if you don't like it? Is your whole day ruined? You know what I mean? It's like, I'm just excited. I'm just excited and I hope I like it. But if I don't, that's okay too. Now I know, Oh my God. Ooh. Chat popped in to see why Kyle's on the thumbnail. Oh, don't worry. I'm going to get to him in a second. Men. Useless. Oh my God. Okay. Ooh. I love that everyone is so concerned about Kyle. Y'all love so many. We'll get into it. Okay, now, let's just go over this really fast so we can talk about it. Jimmy Kimmel's off the air. Trump's mad at him.
Kimmel yanked from ABC's airwaves indefinitely. And it's all over this comment he made on the air on Monday night.
He had some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing.
Well, we don't know that. We don't know if he's literally one of them, right? We don't know what he is. He might be nothing, which should be scarier to you, that he might be nothing.
Everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
Condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House.
That comment generated a lot of outrage in MAGA media circles, with pro-Trump websites and Fox News shows targeting Kimmel over it. And then on Wednesday afternoon, FCC Chairman Brendan Carr, a close ally of President Trump, threatened ABC and parent company Disney, saying that he wanted to see Kimmel suspended.
It appears to be some of the...
It was like the tamest joke I've ever heard in my life. That's what's interesting. They're firing people for quoting Charlie Kirk or for like showing a video of Trump. How is this fireable?
The sickest conduct possible. There's calls for Kimmel to be fired. I think, you could certainly see a path forward for suspension over this. And again, the FCC is going to have remedies that we could look at.
When I asked Carr for comment about ABC's decision, he replied to me with a GIF. This is that famous meme from NBC's The Office, where Michael Scott and Dwight Schrute are celebrating in their office. One more important thing to remember here. When Stephen Colbert's show was canceled by CBS over the summer, Trump started to target Kimmel.
Fallon has no talent. Kimmel has no talent. They're next. They're going to be going. I hear they're going to be going. I don't know, but I would imagine because...
Okay, so people are in chat are saying boycott Disney and Hulu. So people are doing that. I think I love a boycott. I'm doing Amazon for the next 12 months, or not the next 12 months, but I've been doing it. I got to look up when I started that, girl. Honestly, I feel great saving so much money. But yeah, if you want, you can boycott Disney and Hulu for this. You can be a part of that. You don't have to, but it's a good thing to, participate in, I think. Also, it's going to save you some money because that shit's overpriced. And I know the new season of Mormon Wives is coming out on Disney. So, and I usually cover that stuff. So it's like, uh-oh, am I not going to cover it now? I don't know how I feel about it. It's not even like I like Jimmy Kimmel, by the way. But it's the principle of the matter. So yeah, I don't have Disney or Hulu right now. I'm not going to get them. I'm going to pay attention to it. Chess said, isn't Disney raising the prices? They always are, right? So you have to make a decision, but you don't have to do it because there are so many other things you can put your money to and your time to that would also make a difference. But, it's an option. It's one of the options of boycotting. I'm trying to think of what else. I cannot believe there is one thing I will say as a millennial. I just cannot believe how expensive all the streaming stuff has gotten. We keep very few streaming things available to us because if I paid for every streaming site, y'all, it is so much money. It is offensive. You should be paying attention to how many streaming sites you have and if you need them. And honestly, you should go between them. If you're not watching anything on one, go to the other. Save them too. Because I'm sorry. Paying for some of these things year-round is ridiculous. I don't pay for Disney year-round. I pay for Disney when I come back. I don't pay for Disney year-round. Ain't no way. I don't pay for anything year-round except Spotify because I listen to audiobooks all the time. And even that, or YouTube Premium. I do YouTube Premium. I'm a dedicated YouTube Premium girly. But there's too many benefits. So again, when you think about it, you really got to think about, is this necessary? Because that shit is expensive. I cannot believe it. The prices are crazy. Okay, I want to go forward. I want to talk about, how do I want to do this? Let's do this. And then, let's do this. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll cover Barack Obama talking about Charlie Kirk, and then we'll cover Kyle Kulinski stuff. Okay, here's a story you want to be paying attention to.
College student was found hanging from a tree. A young black college student was found hanging from a tree in Mississippi. Police say there's no evidence of foul play.
I hate this little thing that shows up on
TikTok. A young
TikTok.
black college student was found hanging from a tree in Mississippi. Police say there's no evidence of foul play, but the family believes he was a victim of racially motivated lynching and is pushing for an independent investigation. Trey Reed was a 21-year-old college student found hanging from a tree on September 15th at Delta State University in Cleveland, Mississippi. He was described as a warm, promising young man who was deeply loved and respected by all who knew him. Reed's grandfather, JB, was frustrated with the sheriff department's quick conclusion of suicide, saying, "He told me they found Trey Reed in his room, and he didn't even say possible suicide. He said suicide. Something is not right, and I don't believe Trey would do this to his family and hang himself." The NAACP expressed skepticism about police's quick conclusions too, saying, "Our people have not historically hung ourselves from trees." The family is now calling for an independent investigation and autopsy, and further investigations are needed, especially in light of the threats directed towards black people following Charlie Kirk's death. In the days after Kirk's death, at least 8 HBCUs across 5 states received terroristic threats and were forced to go on lockdown. On September 10th, a white supremacist group gathered in California to rally for Kirk's death, yelling, "White man, fight back!" and a song and video directly calling for lynching circulated online. Reed's case is being taken on by civil rights attorney Ben Crump. In a statement, he said, "We cannot accept vague conclusions when so many questions remain. I will lead a team of civil rights leaders and organizations in pursuing transparency and answers."
Yo, did you see those protests of white men, like stand up, or white men, whatever? And I'm just like, what are we doing, bro? Just insane. We've got to stay on the story. We've got to talk about it. What's this?
A pro-lynching song the other day that says "hang 'em up high at sundown," and then suddenly Trey Reed is found hung from a tree while his family demands answers.
I didn't hear about this.
They claim no foul play immediately, but the left are inciting violence.
What song?
Who has 54,000 followers and Crashing just released this song about hanging people and lynching. Of course, he's right-wing, claiming not to be racist. After being called out by other content creators, he posted this reply.
One of my favorite country music singers is a man named Charlie Daniels, and he wrote a song a long time ago called Simple Man. And in that song, he talks about evil people like pedophiles and rapists and murderers, and that the solution to getting rid of those people was a big tall tree and a short piece of rope. Now, I've got a different opinion than you, and you would go
see how people call for violence
over here and persecute me because I have a different opinion. Well, that shows exactly what you're about. You don't want justice, you don't like common sense, you want to make it about race because that's all you got. Well, see, I grew up in a farming community, and regardless of what color you were, if you had common sense, you knew that regardless of the color of the egg, when you cracked it open, that the yolk looked the same.
Okay, my dude, let's give you the benefit of the doubt here. Let's take a look at when
what is this music?
The last public hanging was as a form of execution. Oh, look at that. 1937. Now let's look at some other facts. Last documented lynching was of Michelle Donald in Mobile, Alabama in 1981. I get the feeling you were born not long after that. Checking into your history, I can see that you're from Virginia. I decided to check in when the last hanging happened as a form of execution, continuing to give you the benefit of the doubt. Look at that, 1926. Crazy. And this was when Raymond Arthur was kidnapped from the county jail by an angry mob of white men and then brutally lynched. Did you ever stop to consider that maybe what you grew up around was just racism? All right, giving you more of the benefit of the doubt, let's talk about Charlie Daniels. Charlie Daniels was known as being racist. He was against the 2020 Breonna Taylor protest, which was fighting against racism. He was quoted saying that there are some people out there that deserve to spend a week picking cotton. He was obsessed with Confederate symbols. Charlie can doctor up his music however he wants, but when he talked about liars, rapists, and how they should be hung from trees, people from back then considered one demographic to fit into that category. Bet you can figure out what that demographic is. You still have
this white on white crime just happened right here on this TikTok. He just white on white crimed his own. That was crazy. I didn't know any of that. Very interesting. Whoa. I just learned so much in one little TikTok. Oh my God. Yeah, let's not maybe talk about lynching. You know what I mean? Let's maybe not talk about that. All right. Let's take a little bit of break. I'll come back and then we're going to watch this video. Damn, bro. That was crazy. right, girlies, I'm back. Pausing music in 1, 2, 3. All right. All right, let's talk about Barack Obama, because he was in the news over Charlie Kirk, and people had a lot of thoughts about it. Okay, so obviously from like a pretty leftist perspective, we have our criticisms of Barack Obama as a president. We also have a lot of compliments to Obama in a lot of different ways. We have like a hate-love relationship with him for a lot of reasons. But he had some things to say about Charlie Kirk, so I thought we could talk about them today since the clip is going viral. Okay, and I thought that'd be important to talk about. Let's see what he said.
Well, speaking of the events of the world, you are in Pennsylvania, as you know, earlier this year, the governor's mansion, the subject of an arson attack, the tragedy in Minnesota back in June, the horrific murder in Utah of a conservative activist. Are we at an inflection point in our country? Where are we today?
Well, we are certainly at an inflection point, not just around political violence, but there are a host of larger trends that we have to be concerned about. I think it is important for us at the outset to acknowledge that political violence is not new. It has happened at certain periods in our history. But it is something that it is anathema to what it means to be a democratic country. And regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, what happened to Charlie Kirk was horrific and a tragedy. What happened, as you mentioned, to the state legislators in Minnesota, that is horrific. It is a tragedy. And there are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The central premise of our democratic system is that we have to be able to disagree and have sometimes really contentious debates without resort to violence. And when it happens to some, but even if you think they're quote unquote on the other side of the argument, that's a threat to all of us. And we have to be clear and forthright in condemning it.
I think this is the part of the conversation where obviously we all agree, but I would argue that not everyone actually agrees, right? Charlie Kirk made a call for public executions. He said, how young should kids be watching public executions? We should bring them back. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's just very wrong for us to repaint Charlie Kirk and his history as not being a person who called for violence constantly. And so I think that's why people are having a very hard time empathizing with his position. Though we can be very sympathetic, it's hard to empathize with a person that didn't even like empathy. And I know somebody in my comment section was like, Brittany, he was talking about political empathy, not human to human empathy. Politics needs empathy more than ever. And society should reflect that. Our politics should be a reflection of our empathy, but see how it's not? And I grew up conservative, and I used to think empathy was weakness. I used to think that religious people call it false compassion. Oh, Brittany, you don't want to have false compassion. That's how they trick you. Compassion that is genuine can't be false. Now, I agree that my ability to empathize with people can allow me to make excuses for people's bad behavior. Funny enough, it's usually conservatives. The people I have a tendency to make excuses for the most are conservative or centrist people. People who had bad childhoods, people who have bigoted beliefs, people that are hateful. Because I understand that at one point you were a baby, and at some point you were conditioned to believe this was how the world should be, but also as an adult you did something to make it different. So I have to be open with boundaries. And it is interesting that they're so afraid of being falsely compassionate with trans people, but they're never worried about being falsely compassionate with racists. And that's kind of sad.
Now, that doesn't mean that we can't have a debate about the ideas that people who were victims of political violence we're promoting. And so I've noticed that there's been some confusion, I think, around this lately. And frankly, coming from the White House and some of the other positions of authority that suggest, even before we had determined who the perpetrator of this evil act was, that somehow we're going to identify an enemy.
I'm going to put him at 1.5 because our sweet Barack Obama talks so slow, okay?
We're going to suggest that somehow that enemy was at fault, and we are then going to use that as a rationale for trying to silence discussion around who we are as a country and what direction we should go. And that's a mistake as well. And so, look, obviously I didn't know Charlie Kirk. I was generally aware of some of his ideas. I think those ideas were wrong. But that doesn't negate the fact that what happened was a tragedy and that I mourn for him and his family. He's a young man with 2 small children and a wife who obviously, and a huge number of friends and supporters who cared about him. And so we have to extend grace to people during their period of mourning and shock. We can also, at the same time, say that I disagree with the idea that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was a mistake. That's not me politicizing the issue. It's making an observation about who are we as a country. I can say that I disagree with the suggestion that my wife or Justice Jackson does not have adequate brain processing power. I can say that I disagree that Martin Luther King was awful. I can disagree with some of the broader suggestions of that liberals and Democrats are promoting a conspiracy to displace whites and replace them by ushering in illegal immigrants. Those are all topics that we have to be able to discuss honestly and forthrightly, while we still insist that in that process of debate, we respect other people's right to say things that we profoundly disagree with. That's how we should approach this. Now, the last point I'll make on this, or building on a point I made earlier, I've been very impressed with Governor Cox in Utah and how he's approached some of these issues. I suspect Governor Cox and I disagree on a whole bunch of stuff. He is a Republican, a self-professed conservative Republican. But in his response to this tragedy, as well as his history of how he engages with people who are political adversaries, he has shown, I think, that it is possible for us to disagree while abiding by a basic code of how we should engage in public debate. I think your own governor here, Josh Shapiro, has done the same thing. When I was president, in the aftermath of tragedies, when Dylann Roof went into a black church and, based on his own words, shot a group of folks who were engaged in Bible study and who had invited him in. And according to him, it was for racist reasons. As President of the United States, my response was not, who may have influenced this troubled young man to engage in that kind of violence, and now let me go after my political opponents and use that. George Bush, again, I don't agree with him on a lot of stuff, but he is a good, gracious man, and one of the, I thought, most commendable things that he did. After 9/11, the most horrific thing to happen to the United States during the course of my lifetime, in my memory, in the aftermath of this terrible tragedy, made a point. We are going to go after the people who perpetrated this. But he explicitly went out of his way to say, we are not at war against Islam, and systematically and repeatedly talked about how we can't use this as a way to divide and target fellow Americans. And so when I hear not just our current president, but his aides, who have a history of calling political opponents vermin, enemies, who need to be targeted, that speaks to a broader problem that we have right now, and something that we're going to have to grapple with, all of us, whether we're Democrats, Republicans, independents. But we have to recognize that on both sides, undoubtedly there are people who are extremists and who say things that are contrary to what I believe are America's core values. But I will say that those extreme views were not in my White House. I wasn't embracing them. I wasn't empowering them. I wasn't putting the weight of the United States government behind extremist views. And that is, when we have the weight of the United States government behind extremist views, we've got a problem. And so your original question is, are we at an inflection point? We're at an inflection point in the sense that we always have to fight for our democracy. And we have to fight for those values that have made this country the envy of the world. And I often say democracy is not self-executing. It depends on us as citizens, regardless of our political affiliations, to stand up for certain core values, because otherwise we may not have them.
Wow.
Okay, what do we think about that? What are our thoughts? Chess says the people have the power. To be honest with you, the people do have the power, but that's where your radical acceptance has to come in. We have the world we want it to be. Right? Like, that's what I'm trying to get people to understand. That's what my radical acceptance journey was. I had to accept that the world is exactly the way people want it to be because it's a reflection of our actions. And that's really hard to process because you're like, no, I don't want it to be this way. But it couldn't be this way without us making it this way. Guys, we literally outnumber all the people we say we're so upset with. They can't do anything without us. And that's the problem. They're not. They're absolutely doing it with us. And that's the issue. Okay? So I think like that's the dilemma we're coming into is like, yeah, I'm not doing it. Like, I'm only doing what I absolutely like find necessary within reason, but that's really hard because everyone has a different idea of what that means. Right? Like, not everyone, is in a position to go to prison. Not everyone's in a position to die for their beliefs. Not everyone's in a position to do something. But that's why it's so hard. That's why it's so hard. You know what I mean? So I agree with you guys that it was kind of like a nothing burger, kind of like a basic speech from a politician. I would say that that's kind of the issue that I felt like the Democrats ran into, is they were trying to play nice way too much with the Republicans. And like the future can't be Republican, guys. Like it just can't be. There's too much racism and just really ugliness coming out of the Republican Party. Like that can't be the reason. I can't show you Bernie Sanders stuff because he actually copyrights and takes down my videos because of his fucking or actually no, I take that back. Hold on.
The reason
maybe Bernie won't do it. Hold on, maybe Bernie won't do it. But Bernie's whole hold on, where did he post the Charlie Kirk? Did you see his statement on Charlie Kirk? Oh, hold on, this actually might work. Listen to just the beginning.
Thank you very much for joining me. I want to say a few words regarding the terrible murder yesterday of Charlie Kirk, someone who I strongly disagreed with on almost every issue, but who was clearly a very smart and effective communicator and organizer, and someone unafraid to get out into the world and engage the public. My condolences go out to his wife and his family. A free and democratic society, which is what America is supposed to be about, depends upon the basic premise that people can speak out, organize, and take part in public life without fear, without worrying that they might be killed, injured, or humiliated for expressing their political views. In fact, that is the essence of what freedom is about and what democracy is about. You have a point of view? That's great. I have a point of view that is different than yours. That's great. Let's argue it out. We make our case to the American people at the local, state, and federal levels, and we hold free elections in which the people decide what they want. That's called freedom and democracy. And I want as many people as possible to participate in that process without fear. Freedom and democracy is not about political violence. It is not about assassinating public officials. It is not about trying to intimidate people who speak out on an issue. Political violence, in fact, is political cowardice. It means that you cannot convince people of the correctness of your ideas, and you have to impose them through force. Every American, no matter what one's political point of view may be, must condemn all forms of political violence and all forms of intimidation. We must welcome and respect dissenting points of view. That's what our Constitution is about. That's what our Bill of Rights is about. That, in fact, is what freedom is about. The murder of Charlie Kirk is part of a disturbing rise in political violence that threatens to hollow out public life and make people afraid of participating. From the January 6, 2021 attack on the United States Capitol, to the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, to the attack on Paul Pelosi, to the attempted kidnapping of Michigan Governor Whitmer, to the murder of Minnesota Speaker of the House Melissa Hortman and her husband, to the arson attack on Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, to the shooting of United Health Executive Brian Thompson, and the shooting several years ago of Representative Steve Scalise, this chilling rise in violence has targeted public officials across the political spectrum. Sadly, this is not a new phenomenon. We all remember the assassinations of President Kennedy, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Senator Robert F. Kennedy, John Lennon, Medgar Evers, and the attempted assassinations of President Ronald Reagan and Alabama Governor George Wallace. This is a difficult and contentious moment in American history. Democracy in our country and throughout the world is under attack. And there are a lot of reasons for that which need serious discussion. But bottom line, if we honestly believe in democracy, if we believe in freedom, all of us must be loud and clear. Political violence, regardless of ideology, is not the answer and must be condemned. Thank you very much.
I played the whole thing. Why don't I like that speech? Why don't we like that speech? What's wrong with the speech? It feels like when your parents tell children to love each other and to treat each other with dignity, and then they go to the voting booth and vote for Trump. Why the fuck are you lecturing us when your continuous support of the Biden administration did nothing to save Palestinians? That your use of language when it comes to Palestine is that it's a war. Why the fuck are you lecturing me when you are going and turning around and supporting an administration that is going to kill Palestinians? Okay, this literally feels like I'm in school again and my parents are like, you should treat people kindly, and then go and stand in front of abortion clinics tackling women as they walk through the door. What are you talking about? Political violence isn't okay? Then why the fuck are we kidnapping people off the streets? Political violence isn't okay? Then why the fuck is the military in our streets? Why are the cops policing neighborhoods unjustly? It feels like he's lecturing us when we're like, hey, we pay your salary, bitch. You work for us, homie. Yes, no violence should ever come to you, but don't use your power to be violent towards us. And that's the annoyance we all fear. Why are we being taxed to hell? Why is living so fucking hard for everybody? Why is the dollar doing so fucking poorly? Why is everything happening the way that it has? Don't lecture me, bro. Okay? Like, don't lecture me, bro. I didn't fucking do it. I'm not the one in charge. You did it. And at the same time, we still are participants in the system, right? So obviously, we shouldn't be violent, period, globally or locally. Globally or locally. And that's the issue. It's like, oh, I don't support the military, but I support the troops. The troops are participating in exactly the system that goes and kills innocent people overseas. You know that Charlie Kirk line where he says, if I see a black pilot, I question if they're qualified. Well, now black guys in the military are making these little these little videos with that sentence and then showing themselves being pilots in the US military would have loved to support the message if maybe you weren't actually in the military. Because again, I think a lot of people are tricked to join the military, but yeah, being in the military is not a brag. You know? But I love the sentiment. The sentiment's right. That Charlie Kirk was racist and hated black people. But I can't also get excited that it's like, you're in the military, bro. And I say this as somebody who had a lot of brothers in the military. Somebody who walked into a recruiter's office when she was very young. Yeah, I'm not excited about that, bro. Okay? I really wish our government, instead of lecturing us, would also stop policing our neighborhoods and acting the way that it's been acting. Okay? You know? Is chat fighting? What's happening here? Chat said, I think it's your fault if you ever thought Bernie was hope. Okay, I caucused for Bernie. You need to relax. It's no one's fault. It's just a part of growing and getting better. Okay? I also caucused for Bernie. He was a better choice. He just wasn't the perfect choice. Nobody will ever be. Okay? You said I'm talking currently. Sure, but I don't think you should blame people. This is a philosophy channel. The blaming people is the root of the issue. Nobody should be blamed. Everybody's responsible. Okay? It's no one's fault. It's everyone's responsibility. Okay? It's no one's fault. It's everyone's responsibility. You are responsible for keeping people safe. And when you don't do that, it's now your responsibility to do something about it. Okay? That's the point. Okay, now with that said, let's talk about this new thing from Kyle Kulinski and everything, because he just continues to have the worst takes ever. So there is this pipeline, okay, of boy podcasts to politics. Okay, I'm going to watch a TikTok, then we're going to watch Kyle. I'm not a fan of Kyle Kulinski, even though I used to be. I find him to be too much of a dude, bro. At the end of the day, his suggestion to be as ruthless and dirty and disgusting as Republicans is so destiny coded. The two of them might as well be together. And I am never going to do anything that supports the mindset that we should be as ugly people. So for political people on YouTube who advocate to go as low as Republicans, useless, not helpful, not good. We do not want violence. We do not want to become ugly people. We do not want to become hateful. We don't want to have to use slurs in an edgy way so we can contend with Republicans. No. I will not be as ugly as the Republicans because, again, I think the thing that led people to even being Republican in the first place was an ugliness within themselves that gets pushed out into the world that makes them double down on their bad ideas. And I want to free people from their bad ideas. Okay, so first the TikTok, then we'll go into Kyle Kulinski.
Pipeline is more than just a bunch of political videos. It's like a cultural movement that actually exists in every single hobby you can imagine. It's everywhere. It's in lifting, it's in hunting, it's in rap music, it's in tabletop games. Like, there are alt-right people who lie in wait and build massive audiences. I mean, fucking huge. They become pillars of these hobbies. And they don't talk about politics once at all. They don't actually express any political opinion. What they do is that how they actually express their hobby itself becomes a bunch of dog whistles for political opinions, and people dig into that in the comments, and then that leads people off of those hobbies or off of those spaces where those hobbies are being like performed onto actual political pages. Like, that's the chain. This is why after the election, when people were like, oh, we need a Joe Rogan to the left, it's like, no, what you need is you need like 100 people who do shit like Joe Rogan, right? Who do their own hobbies, who don't talk about politics, and you just need them to also to happen to be leftists. That's what you need. You don't need more fucking people to lecture people about, you know, about like fucking Marxism, dude. Like, nobody needs that. Like, what the internet needs as a proper cultural reaction would be 100, 1,000 hobby channels that just get big enough that they become their own pillars, their own counter narrative inside of the hobbies. That's what you need.
So this happened a while back with tabletop games when the quartering was banned. I forget which one he was banned from. Maybe you guys remember. The quartering was banned from, I think it's Magic the Gathering, because he was being so misogynistic. There were a few guys who were banned from being in these communities because everything they did was so misogynistic. And that, I think there's something to this that's really powerful. You start to love a guy, you start to love a musician, you start to love a person. And then even with this Charlie Kirk stuff, you realize how many of the people you liked, you didn't know their political views. Well, now you know. This happened in the gym bro bubble, because I do love me a gym bubble. And the gym bubble is very conservative, generally speaking. And I waited to see if the girls I follow in the gym bubble posted anything about Charlie Kirk or followed anyone. I had to unfollow some gym girlies because they were following Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro. I was like, absolutely not. Okay. I go through the people I follow and I see they're following. And if they're following any of these people, I unfollow them. I'm not interested, because if they want to play some neutral, well, it's the president, or, well, I just like some of the things he says. No. Okay. So I think that there is something to be said about this. I don't know if this is exactly the solution, but I think the conversation is interesting. I also think it's why gamers tend to be political, because all of a sudden you're just gaming. And now, okay. And now all of a sudden we're talking about trans people. Notice some of the most homophobic, misogynistic, remember Gamergate? Hello. Fun fact, I was a liberal when Gamergate happened, and it pushed me into progressivism. The way I saw men respond to Anita Sarkeesian pushed me more progressive, because I was like, oh my God, you are a misogynist. You are sexist. I was a liberal. And I was like, oh, this is not the answer. You all are responding to her way too hard. You are not being cool. Gamergate, even with the article happening with, I can't remember her name right now. The one girl who wrote the article, but Anita Sarkeesian specifically, the way they went for her, that was it. I was like, this can't be good. You know what I mean? Tell me Patty passes. As far as I know, Lean Beef Patty is not a conservative, and she does seem to pass all the tests. Please, Lord in heaven, let Lean Beef Patty be consistent. She seems to be good, but you never know with these gym people, but I hope so. Same with Jesse James West. They collab a lot. Fingers crossed. He seems to be one of the good ones. Okay? Fingers crossed. Okay? So it's one of those things where Chatter, don't make me gag. It says, why do progressives continue to support the exploitation of animals? Animal agriculture is vile, terrible for the environment, and unnecessary for our health. Why not reject the oppression of animals? I think it's a journey, and I think everyone comes to the realization of everything in their life when it hits them personally, at home, realistically, embodied. You can't expect people to do it overnight, but I think it's a good question, okay? But I think you have to understand, and I think I do about everything, that people only come to realizations when they come to them. So maybe people will come to the realization, maybe they won't, but you don't want people to come to the realization performatively. You want it to be embodied in real, okay? So you got to keep tabs on that, okay? You want it to be a real embodied experience. That's, I think, so important. Whether the embodied experience is to side on caution or the embodied experience is to go all the way and be like, I'm vegan. But vegan philosophically is I have to come to this consensus for real. So, well, we still can't teach people not to judge people off skin color. You know what I mean? Progressives, as progressive as they are still people on a journey, and they have to deconstruct their relationship with all of the things that they're doing. Okay. Now let's watch Kyle Kulinski, because this interview came out, and I think there's so much to say about this. This is from the podcast Joshua Citarelli. I don't know who this is at all. This is them. And they had Kyle Kulinski on, and I think we should talk about this section.
Right. On the topic of, I want to segue us into this, on this topic of alt media, why is the right wing so overwhelmingly dominant? There was a 2025 Media Matters study. I'm sure you've seen this, and we can dispute their method of categorization and all this stuff, but they report, and I think it's fair to say, it's like 90% dominated by conservative voices. Why do you think that is?
I think they're willing to shitpost. I think they're willing to be edgy. I think they're willing to, push boundaries. They're willing to do the things that naturally and organically get more eyeballs on them. And I think that's tied into, you don't start overtly political. You start with just something interesting and edgy, and then eventually you become political. Yeah. Again, it's like the Rogan thing that we talked about before. And they're willing to do that. Whereas I feel like people on the left, there's still a little bit of an aversion to be actually edgy, actually push boundaries, actually hey, look at me, get some attention by doing something crazy. Yeah. And I think we suffer as a result of that. And yeah, hearing those numbers is, that's a dagger to my heart too. 90%, that's what that study said, 90% right wing. Yeah. Oh my God, we got a lot of work to do, man.
Speaking of being edgy, you recently called the president, I'm just checking my notes here, a fat retard. How do you consider your online presence on X or Twitter or what have you?
Right? So, listen, We should have a discussion about slurs and words and what they mean. And my Discord and I are always having those conversations, right? We use words so casually. We have these conversations. Again, the conversation is what standard are we setting and what standard are we adhering to as public figures and / as private figures? Because I do think you have to show up more professionally in public than you do at your home, right? When I'm at home, I might be picking my nose, blowing my nose, might be gross, might be, who knows what I'm doing. I'm not going to do that on stream where I'm being professional. I'm not Eden Ross and XQC who pick their nose on stream and eat their own toenails. There should be a professional standard, okay? So what you do in your home, okay, is different than what you do here. Okay, what you do in your bathroom is different than what you do on screen. So Kyle Kulinski using that particular ableist, insult towards Trump is a conversation we need to have. And is this a person that publicly we want to promote? And again, I don't watch Kyle anymore. I found him to be distasteful. I don't follow any of these guys anymore. I feel like a lot of them are just not progressive, truly. They're not really progressive. They're not really left. They're not really deconstructing this behavior. And I think this is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, I understand as a person who has said the R word so many times on stream, who was lectured about it just a couple of years ago, and I was like, I'm not going to stop saying it. I obviously stopped saying it for a lot of reasons. And by my 40s, I will stop saying a lot of words. Now, we want to make sure we're not policing our language like conservatives do. Remember, I grew up conservative and they think cussing is like a sin. We don't want to move into a bubble where we think words are sinful. We want to move into a bubble where if we are political figures, if we are public figures, if we're in a position of power, maybe some of the way we speak should be changed to set a good standard for public discourse, how we speak to each other publicly, right? Because again, how we speak to each other publicly will impact for the positive how we speak to each other privately, okay? So we want to be those people. We know as adults, if Alexa was recording us for real and they shared all of the tapes, all of us would go down for the way we make jokes in private. The difference is what is the feeling behind the joke, right? If I'm in a queer community and we're all hanging out and I'm like, oh my God, you're so gay, bro. That's different than hanging out with actual homophobes who are literally going to say things like, dude, you're gay, don't touch me. Okay, now we have to talk about your homophobia. So we know as adults, this can feel really disingenuous because we know language is so different in different contexts. So pause. What is the context of Kyle Kulinski being a political representation of the left, being someone, yes, who doesn't take donors, yes, somebody who goes after politicians, yes, and somebody who's being interviewed of what to do with the left, right? His position of power in the context of the conversation makes it so him calling Trump the R word, it's a different standard and should be held to that standard. The question is, do we support the standard or not support the standard? So again, I know this conversation gets really confused and people go, well, if I can't speak this way publicly, what about privately? And what about if I'm in the shower alone and nobody can hear me? It's like, okay, stop. None of those contexts matter. This is the only context that matters. Is this the standard we want to set? Is this a good standard? Okay, let's go back to it.
Edgy, you recently called the president, I'm just checking my notes here, a fat retard. How do you consider your online presence on X or Twitter or what have you?
What I've learned from is the right. I learned from the right because I look at them be the most unhinged, relentless bullies and freaks you've ever seen in your life and get rewarded for it. And it looks to me like people and voters reward strength more than anything else. And so there's something about the bully that actually is appealing to people. They might not like to admit it, but it's true. And so what I'm doing is copying the tactics of the right in an attempt to defeat the right.
Yeah, I don't like it. And I don't like the way y'all are talking to each other in my chat too. So you know who you are. I'm about to mute both of you. Okay? You, don't make me say your names on chat. Okay? And make you permanent in this VOD that I might clip later. Okay? Stop it. Stop it. You know who you are. Stop it. Stop enticing the chat for no reason. You are, I can't tell what your tone is, but it sounds aggravating. You are fighting with each other. And you are the common denominator, so stop it. Okay? Slow it down. We're literally watching a video of a man using language to escalate tension. You are escalating tension. Okay? We can see which one you are. You are the one escalating tension. Calm down. Or I will mute you because it sounds like you need a timeout. Okay? Also, for passionate vegans in my chat, I hear you. Relax. Okay? Relax. It's a journey. Relax. We're genociding Palestinians right now. People are having a hard time caring about chickens. You need to relax. It's a journey. We're all animals on a planet figuring it out. Calm down, or I'll mute you too. Okay? Everybody relax. Going back to a white man who's saying the R word.
We're seeing this now with the gerrymandering fight too, right? You have to, we're going to get 5 more seats in Texas. And then Gavin Newsom goes, okay, well, we're going to wipe that out and do 5 more Democratic seats in California. And then you have Beto O'Rourke comes out. Beto O'Rourke, who's a corporate Democrat, he goes, fuck the rules. There are no rules anymore. There are no referees. Whatever you do, we're going to do the same shit. And that's the mentality that people on the left have been screaming for the Democrats to have for the longest time. And
no, I don't think we're screaming at the Democrats to call people ableist slurs. I think we're asking for the Democrats to stand on principle. We're asking the Democrats to actually stand by their values. And that's not the same things. That's the dilemma. I really think men on the internet really think the edginess they're asking the Democrats to do, we don't want Bernie Sanders to get on the mic and start being like, you are the R word. Like, that's not what we want. We want him to get on the stand and say, like, we're not going to stand for genocide. We're not going to stand for the oppression of minorities, that we're going to work together as a country to show kindness to one another. I don't want Bernie Sanders or any of these people to get up on a podium and start throwing around slurs, bro. That's not what we want. We want the Democrats to have a backbone in relation to values.
I feel like just now people are beginning to get it. So what I would do is I would encourage anybody who's a liberal or a leftist, embrace that shit poster energy, embrace that I don't give a fuck energy, because I got news for you. They don't care about you, what you think, what you feel. They understand how to gain power and how to exercise power. And you need to fight fire with fire. You can't just lay back and play by a different set of rules while they're breaking all the rules.
No. As your friendly philosophy YouTuber, no. This is not philosophically sound. No. An eye for an eye, girlies. An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. Focus, lock in. Okay? No. And they're not playing by the rules because they didn't have any rules. You're the ones who have to set the precedent for the rules. You have to actually engage in the rules. And then you have to accept that people are they're bad. I think Kyle Kulinski's a bad person for advocating for this. This is not helpful. Is he an evil person in the same way Trump is? No. But I think this is a bad decision. This is just a bad call for action. It makes no sense, you know? This is like, yeah, he's doing bully behavior. Exactly, chat. It's like he wants you to bully the bully, but then you just become the bully. He's advocating for people to become the bully. Now, how do you avoid being a bully but standing up for yourself? Guys, the fear of doing what's right is knowing that the bullies might not care. That's why it's scary, okay? This is bad. Chet says, hard disagree, Britt. Kyle is advocating for damage reduction. I disagree. I don't know how causing more harm brings harm reduction. How does causing more harm bring harm reduction? This sounds like people who say the nuke stopped the war and actually ended up causing less Japanese lives to die. So you think it's okay nuking Japan because it stopped the war? Right? Like, what are we doing here? No, you can't. You can't throw a nuke because, quote, it stops the war. Okay? I disagree with that idea. We have to advocate for less. But the problem with politics, though, is like they don't care about values. They care about winning. Like, he is talking about winning, right? And I'm saying, what does winning have to do with what's right? And yeah, bad people won't care and they'll take advantage of you, right? Chet says, if every position of power is held by Republicans, is that harm reduction? Do you mean R words like Republicans, or are you slurring right now? Okay, this is a philosophy channel, bros. I'm explaining to you how we got here and how Kyle Kulinski isn't going to help, okay? So, man evolved, okay? Here, I'll make a better. Man evolved. Here's man, okay? Humankind. And they continue to think this is the whole universe when there is a whole other universe available to them. And they need to start considering that universe. The dilemma is that because they think this is all that matters, including Kyle Kulinski, they will never be able to do anything else but live within the construct of this bubble, which limits them to violence and power. And I'm saying, take a deep breath and consider that the people in positions of power with the largest microphones could be advocating for anything else except calling Trump a fat R word. Is this the best we have? The greatest minds in America? The greatest thing we can do for civilization is to call people a fat R word? This is it, baby. This is the height of intelligence in America. And it might just be. It might just be. But then do not pretend you are better than them. You cannot act the same as them and pretend you are better than them. You can't. It makes no sense. You have to either be better than them, be more ethical, or you can be just like them, but you cannot be both. So which is it? Are you going to be just like them, or are you going to be different from them? If you don't know how to stand up for yourself without becoming an evil person, isn't that everybody's excuse? Isn't that every Republican, every Nazi excuse? Well, what are we supposed to do? They're hurting us. Isn't that Israel's whole fucking excuse? What are we supposed to do? Hamas. Hamas is hurting us. What are we? They're hiding in hospitals and schools. We have no choice. Isn't that exactly the same fucking bullshit we keep hearing? So how are you different at the end of the day? How are you doing anything better? I tell you right now, it is very hard to be a good person. Being a good person is the hardest thing you will ever do, which is why most people will never do it. They will stop at some point. Okay? They will stop at some point. Here's Kyle Kulinski stopping right in front of us.
And so that energy really came. I really think that this last election broke me in a way. It radicalized me. Watching Trump get in the White House again, it makes you feel like, okay, well now I don't even give a fuck anymore. I'm throwing haymakers in every direction.
Exactly. This election did not break me because I'm too strong to be broken by another white racist in office. Okay? It's always been that way. Now what? Chat said, Ryan, thank you for the super chat. Says, violent rhetoric equal violent rhetoric. Be better. Thank you so much for that super chat. Yeah, that's the problem. Nothing matters anymore. I'm broken. I'm a nihilist, Kyle Kulinski says. Let's just be a nihilist, bro. Fuck it. Burn it to the ground. Oh, great job, Kyle Kulinski. Boo. How is this helpful, Kyle? Great. Another man wanting to burn it to the ground. Very fucking helpful.
Right? I'm going out like Scarface at the end of Scarface.
Oh, great.
Say hello to my little friend. Right?
Perfect.
And it turns out that actually works. Turns out that gets more eyeballs on you. Turns out that
this is the greatest thinker of our time right here, baby. Wow, amazing. Beautiful. Act crazy and people will watch you. Whoa, bro. It's literally Gladiatorville. Oh my God, more people will watch me if I sensationalize people's lives and the subjugation of minorities. And look, people love it. Bro, they're hate watching you. If all of these political people, if all of their haters stopped following them, you wouldn't even have a career. You all are literally funded by your haters, bro. Even Hassan. If all of Hassan's haters stopped showing up on stream, the numbers would be sliced in half at least. Ain't no way you're not being primarily funded and given attention to by your haters and you know it. And I know it too because I made this Charlie Kirk video and that video made a few $100s and I never make a few $100s on a video. But because my haters gave me 2,000 comments and 30 seconds of their time, I made a couple $100. That's way more than I ever make because I don't have a platform that depends on my haters to watch me. I make a living with no haters watching me usually. Do I get a little bump in my little paycheck when the haters watch me? Yeah. And if I wanted to, I could do that every fucking time I came on stream and just made my haters watch me. And I could make a lot more money. But what good is that going to do for my mental health, for my audience's mental health, and for your mental health? What is that going to do for any of us? Our haters shouldn't be watching us and spreading. You know how many people I had to report for hate speech because they were saying horrible, horrible things about gay people should die and black people should die? How is that helpful for anybody's mental health? Chet said, where do we go from here, Brittany? How can we afford not to win at any cost when winning means saving people's lives? How else do we win? The truth clearly isn't reaching people. Guys, it never did and it never was. You don't do good because you win. You do good because it's right. Okay? If you're willing to win at any cost, then you don't understand what it means to really be a good person. Good people don't win at any cost. That's what bad people do. Good people die good people because we're not going to win at any cost. And that's the difference. And I know it's hard to hear because being a good person is very difficult. And you're not going to believe me. But yeah, good people don't win at any cost. Sorry. You're here for a very short time on earth. You do not want to spend it winning at any cost. Okay?
It gets more people interested in what you're saying. Turns out people look at that and go, yes, you're a fighter. You represent me. Thank you. Keep doing it. Right? And that's something that even I didn't realize until very, very recently. Just the extent to which you really got to fight hard and go balls to the wall and just call. It's okay. The right is very clear. They have political enemies and they call them out day after day.
Right.
We need to be clear in the opposite direction. But my enemies are not trans people. My enemy, it's not immigrants. My enemies are the billionaires and the fascists. And
Chet said, but then won't all the good people be dead when it's all said and done? Yeah. Isn't that the whole story of Jesus Christ? They killed the one good person. Isn't that the whole point of learning lore? Yeah. That's why I say be very cautious having a baby in the world. Yeah. Welcome to being a person on planet Earth. Good people die, but at least we died good. Okay? But if you're so concerned with like, I want to make the world a better place, you need to ask yourself, is the action I'm taking actually doing that? Or do I have to be evil to do that? It's literally that meme. I know being a dictator is bad, but maybe if I'm the dictator, it will be good. Good people do not want to be dictators. Okay? You have to accept that most of the world isn't good. And if you engage the way Kyle Kalinske is, you're one of them. You're one of the bad people. This is bad. Yeah, this is what bad people, this is how bad people think. This is how bad people engage in the world. Now, maybe you're less bad than other bads, right? Because remember, being bad is a spectrum. We're all bad. But our bad looks different, okay? Okay, there's the very bad. And there's the regular bad. The regular bad, okay? Maybe they litter, or they make an ugly face at somebody, or maybe they flip somebody off because they're mad, okay? Maybe they're going through a trauma cycle of engaging and making excuses for people's bad behavior because they love them and think they can recover. And then there's just this group who's like, hey, we should not improve our language or our state of life, and we should actually engage in rhetoric that appeals to the very bad people over here. So, hey, guess what? Now we're all just bad together. Yeah, you don't want to be on this side, girls, okay? You want to be a regular level of bad. We want our level of bad to be like, yeah, dude, honestly, I feel so bad. I threw the batteries in the regular trash when I know I should have put them in the right trash. Dude, I feel so shitty, bro. I gave that girl a nasty look at the store and I just feel so horrible about it, you know? It's like, yeah, you want to be like the kind of bad that like we can recover from. How are you going to recover from being the kind of bad that like leads to escalation, right? Ted says, do you think Jesus walking on water meant he was just the one good person? Okay, I don't know what that joke is. I don't actually believe in Jesus Christ, nor that he was God, nor that he walked on water. I believe in it as a story, like any other story. Okay, so I don't know what that story, I don't know what that question is. Okay. Chet said, what's the point of living if you're not going to be good? That's for you to answer. Exactly.
So that's where I aim 24/7 and try to attack.
Yeah. On this topic of the corporate Democrats, there's been a lot of...
True. Whiteman compares clout on social media as political change. Dean Withers, all the rest of them, all these men are like, hey, if I have more followers, I'm obviously making change. Destiny, all these people, they're bad people, guys. That's all it is. They're bad men who are selfish and want to bring clout. They just want clout. They just want to be popular. They do not care about the embodied experience of what is ethically good. Okay? That's why I'm critical of Hassan. That's why I'm critical of so many people. At the end of the day, these are men who are literally rich in positions of power. And what are they doing except adding to the escalation? Okay? So that's, again, I'm not saying they're perfect. I'm saying some of them are less bad than others, right? Hassan is nowhere near as bad as like the sexual deviant Destiny is, right? Or even makes the same calls of violence that Destiny does. Everyone, it's different. But it doesn't mean that it's still not adding. Just like Democrats aren't as bad as Republicans, but some of them certainly are. And some of them are happy to be. It's not about who's bad or good, point fingers. It's about, I don't want to be like them, so how do I not be like them? Okay? How do I not be like them? That's what you're saying for yourself. How I look at Kyle Kalinske and I go, this can't be it. And you know what? Michael Burns said the same thing. I saw Michael Burns' show and he talked about this interview as well. And he said, man, this can't be the answer, right? No! Michael Burns is right, but we're both philosophy girlies. Of course this can't be the answer. Being as ugly and destructive as the right cannot be the answer. And so you hear from the philosophy girlies who are like, this isn't it. And I do think we're factually more right. I do.
Talk in the last few months about particularly young men, but just young people in general, moving towards the right, and a lot of struggle to explain why this is. 15 points for young men, 11 points for young women. And I think of our generation and growing up with like the work of Thomas Frank, right? I had a very clear idea that there's a story that explains how the Democrats went from being the labor constituency to this corporatist party. And, maybe if you're growing up in Gen Z, you just don't have the historical memory. You haven't known anyone who ever experienced that transition. What was this?
Chad said it's calling them weird, the same as bullying. It's just silly. It's like deeply immature, right? Okay, so then we have to ask ourselves, are we willing to be deeply immature? I think calling the Republicans weird is like on the side of littering. You're being deeply immature. Okay, but I don't think you're being bad. Yeah, it's unserious. You're being so unserious right now. But see, okay, isn't adulthood just high school with money and power? Isn't that so interesting that when we get old, we're just like high schoolers with money and power? Isn't that so crazy? Now that's interesting. Now that is such a realization. And somebody asked me to talk about this. I can talk about it now. What do I mean that there are no heroes? Being a hero is like the myth of I'm going to grow up and be a cop and be a good cop. Being a hero is a myth, usually perpetrated by men and women who uphold the patriarchy to create a narrative that men are doing things for actually good reasons versus selfish gain and clout, money and status. Like, I need you to process that information that when you live your life thinking, I want to be the hero, it's the same as growing up as a kid, like, I'm going to be a firefighter and help the world. I'm going to be a cop and be a good person. It's like, or I'm going to be a doctor to save kids who are sick. When most people become doctors because it pays well. Okay? Most people want to go into medicine because the status in society looks good. They're going to get paid well. Okay, same with being a veterinarian. Though veterinarians have a crazy high rate of unaliving, they also can make a lot of money depending on how they run their business. Okay? And I just think like people forget that. They really forget that a lot of people don't actually become doctors because they want to help people, right? The status is like what they're aiming for. Chad said, so is Brittany's ideal world filled with only philosophers? Brittany's ideal world is the one I'm living in right now. It's the one where I radically accept that we don't have power over anything more than we have power over. My ideal world is the one that is natural and exists the way that it does, which is this one. This is life. This is the world. And ideally is a myth of a fantasy holding on to the outcome, right? Ryan, thank you so much again for the super chat. Guys, I appreciate that so much. My video got demonetized yesterday or 2 days ago because I talked about Palestine. So I appreciate this so much. It really helps, guys. 100% good people equal Earth survives. Better people, Earth prospers. Yeah, I think like my ideal positioning is that we radically accept that humans are a product of their environments and are on Earth. And then we radically accept that we need to be better, but we need to be better by first starting with ourselves, like really, really. Because our community is a reflection of this. Guys, so many people I meet, listen, if you are a millennial who is doing, especially if you're a girl, because this is like a part of being raised a woman. If you are doing all the emotional labor for your family, if you are spending all of your spoons thinking about how to retire your parents, and a lot of boys are probably in this position too, retiring your parents, saving your elders, making sure people are clothed and fed when they're not spending any of that time thinking about ways to be kinder to you when you're trans or gay or anything else. If you are in a position where you have spent all of your life worried about everybody else at the expense of yourself, you need to pause and breathe. And you need to make sure that you are taking care of yourself so you can take care of your community, but your community must reciprocate that as well. You must build community with people who give it back. Now, when I talk about my family, I'm trying to give you a realistic expectation of people's behaviors, one in which I'm not married to the outcome. And I know that upsets people because they'll say, why are you being so kind to your family if you don't think they'll ever stop being homophobes? For the same reason, I'm still hopeful about the world, even though I don't think most of them will ever stop being bigoted. Right? I don't do it because I'm attached to the outcome. I do it because it's the right thing to do. And if I can say anything for my life, I'd like to say that I died a good person because I was able to live by my values. And that is really, really hard because I don't always do that. I don't always have the strength to put my foot down and say, you're wrong. Sometimes I sit there in really complicated conversations that are really bigoted, and I try to find ways to like be soft to the bigoted person. I want to grow wiser and better every day to be able to say right away, I love you. What you just said was racist. We're not continuing this conversation. You need to decide if you want to understand that that's racist. Versus what I normally do, which is to say, oh, interesting. Where'd you hear that? Oh, that's interesting. How do you feel about that? And that's a good method to de-escalate, but it's not a good method in making it clear where you stand. And I'm not wise enough yet to know how to do both. I'm not wise enough yet to know how to de-escalate while standing my ground. And that's what people are misunderstanding about the whole world. We don't know how to de-escalate and stand our ground. It's really hard, especially when they twist and turn what you've just said. They make it out to be ugly. They go low. They try to find something. Again, I'm not trying to be like the world. If we want to be different than the world, we cannot look at Republicans and think, well, if they go low, we'll go lower. How is that helpful? Thank you so much, Katie. Wow, $30 super chat. Appreciate that so much. Thank you for sharing your outlook and making incredible content. Thank you guys so much. Hey, I appreciate that. I really do. That's a lot. Thank you. I appreciate that. Jess says, I think using weird as a description for, let's say, transphobes can make sense, especially if you're trying to explain it to someone who isn't educated on the subject. Like, why are you being weird? Sure. Like, why are you being weird, dude? That's kind of a weird stance. I think the issue, and again, it goes back to why you're doing what you're doing. So, okay, why don't I eat animals anymore? Right? I go back to that because it's a journey I'm on. Why don't I also make the prescription that other people shouldn't do it? Like those are very interesting things. Why, if Brittany's on a journey, isn't she making the prescription that other people should be on the journey? Because I know that I had to be the Brittany I was to go on the journey in the first place. That's why I don't make prescriptions. Thank you guys so much. Meg, thank you so much for giving out memberships, 5 memberships. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate that so much. Go check out the BoJack Horseman series. I don't know if this tier gives you accessibility to the first tier or second tier, but first tier people get emojis and Monday streams. Come join us for Monday streams. Second tier gets BoJack and other specific content for members. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. I appreciate that. I want you to make the decision without me having to prescribe the decision to you. I want to make suggestions based off outcome. I don't want to tell you ought to do something. Okay? I'm not trying to be like every other person who's ever existed. I kind of want to be different. Not because I want to be unique or special, because I think you exist and that makes you unique and that you are unique. You exist. I just want to say, you know who I don't want to die? Here's how I think about it. Who don't I want to be when I die? I don't want to be the person on my deathbed that's like, Black people are so smart. Their hair is so interesting. I just love touching it. I don't want to be on my deathbed and be like, trans people are so interesting. Do you know they're actually men, but they dress up as women? Yeah, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be on my deathbed and be like, you know, man, I really fucking hated the world and I hope it burned. Like, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be on my deathbed and be like, man, fat people are just lazy. Like, can I please die a better person than this? Can I please, for the love of God, die a better person than this? Tired Mom, membership for 7 months. Thank you for the cupcake emoji. Like, can I be a better person than this when I die? I don't want to die on my deathbed and be like, I don't know. I love running red lights. I just get off on it. Like, can I please die a better person than this? You know what I mean? Like, can I die a better person? I don't want to die on my deathbed and be like, I regret not listening to my nephew who came to me with his problems because I was too busy to hear it. I don't want to die on my deathbed like thinking this person died and went to prison because I lied on their name. You know what I mean? When I think about my deathbed, I don't want to think I didn't talk to my mom in her final moments of life because she was a bad person. I want to say that if I choose to not talk to somebody on their deathbed, it's because it was the right thing to do and not because of some arbitrary rule, but because it coincided with my joy. I want to make sure that when I die, I regret the least, but I also regret just enough to have learned lessons. Jacob, thank you so much for also giving out memberships, 5 memberships, guys. I appreciate that so much. I appreciate that so much. Thank you so much. I just want to try to die like ready to die. Do you guys ever watch stories about people who die? It's always about like regret. And I just don't want to regret. And I also want to know that I died, even if nobody knows my name, knowing I died a good person. It's not about people knowing who I am. It's about knowing who I was. Like, it's about me knowing myself. I know what I did, and I know I died a good person. It's really not about other people knowing. Who was that guy, Pizza Hut or Papa John's, who paid Rosa Parks rent for her whole life, and he died, and then people found out? Like, I just want to die knowing, even if nobody else knows, even if nobody around me knows, even if I die alone, surrounded by nobody I want to know. Little Caesars, thank you. I just want to do what's right, even if nobody ever knows. And I think that's very different living in a world where people only want to do things so people know. I can't tell you how many men I've spoken to who said, well, don't you want people to know your legacy? No. Don't you want people to know what you did? No. Well, don't you want to make a name for yourself? No. We do not have the same dreams. Oh yeah, Papa John's would never. Papa John's is that loser guy. You're right. It's like, yeah, like I don't have that dream, but I can see why you have it. And I know I'm a YouTuber, and I know people think, well, then why are you making a philosophy? And why are you on YouTube? I am so lucky to be here. I am so grateful to be here. I am so just privileged enough to be here. I am so lucky that I get to, for a job, pay my bills, talking about ideas. And I don't need them to be my ideas. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? It's okay if I die and nobody remembers my name. But if they remember some of my ideas, the good ones, hell, I'd be pretty happy with that. It doesn't matter who said it. It doesn't. I don't think it matters unless you use it against people. If you take credit away from women to give credit to men, to push the narrative that women don't do anything, that's bullshit. But if it doesn't matter and we live in this great deconstructed gender future and you're just learning from my ideas, then it doesn't matter that I was a woman who said it. Okay? I think that's kind of important. Discord said, off topic, on the topic of forgiveness, is there a philosophical difference between a mistake and a choice when it comes to accountability and forgiveness? Yeah, definitely. Yeah. 100%. You know, they're literally, the words are different. Mistake, choice. These are two totally different words for a reason. And the philosophical difference is, you know, how you meet that person. Everything matters. Like, the whole context of it matters. That's why it even matters with Kyle Kulinski saying, I'm going to call Trump an R word, a fat R word. It's like, what's the context from this? You know? What is the point of this? Chatter, what's the point of leaving me this comment? I learn a lot more from watching Kyle Kulinski than I do from watching you. Okay. And people learn a lot more from Trump than watching somebody else. What's your point? What do you think you're saying now? Why are you coming into my chat and expressing that? Go learn from Kyle Kulinski then. But you didn't learn to keep your mouth shut, that's for sure. So he must not be that good of a teacher, because why'd you come and do that? And that's the dilemma, right? What does that matter? I don't think I've ever gone into someone's chat my whole life and said, actually, this YouTuber teaches me more than you. Why the world would I ever do that to somebody? Why would I go to someone's place of work and be like, actually, you suck? That's not what we do. Don't go into people's chat and bother them. You're in my house. You just came to my place of work. Okay, think about that. All right. Does anybody have any questions or comments to go over? Because that's what I had for today's stream, guys. Thank you so much, Gio, for the 5 gifted memberships. Hey, you guys are killing me today, bros. Honestly, I'm feeling way too much love. I'm married. You won't, no matter how much you send me members, guys, I can't marry you. I'm already married to my wife, bro. Okay. Just as the founder of Little Caesars, Mike, quietly paid for the rent of civil rights icon Rosa Parks over a decade into her death, 2005. After Parks was robbed and assaulted in her home. Oh, Jesus Christ. What? Chessa's sentences like that are like public masturbation. They're just trying to say it to get themselves off. Exactly. It provides no values or relevant information otherwise. Chet said, I believe in the past you've said that a lot of politics are vibe-based. What vibe should we be shooting for? Sorry, dumb question. Great question. Yo, Duvall, thank you so much for the 5 memberships, guys. Thank you guys so much. Bro, I'm sweating under this sweater. You guys got me sweating. I'm literally like, good thing I'm just wearing a bra under here because, oh my God, I get overwhelmed. I told my partner that. I was like, I get very overwhelmed when people send me super chats and gifts. And he's like, that's kind of the whole point of being a streamer. I was like, I know, but I feel very This is my toxic masculinity. I feel very bashful. I don't know how to receive the gifts, you know? I don't know how to receive it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I really do. Okay, let me see. Let me think. What vibe should we be shooting for? A lot of politics is vibe-based, meaning that we join the groups that we feel most like ourselves with. Like I said, I've talked to so many people in the past who are kinksters, furries, cool with gay people, and yet they vote MAGA. And it's because they vote with the group of people they feel most like themselves with, even though the community isn't uplifting them. The same men I've worked with in the past who will vote for Trump are also the ones who complain the most about not having a community, but they can't vibe with the leftists because they don't feel like them. Okay, they don't feel good around them. They just don't like relate. And because they don't relate, they obviously assume because I don't relate to the vibe, I must then vote the opposite. And I'm saying, how about you relate with the vibe, but you vote accordingly? And because I'm very multifaceted, and I think a lot of my audience is too, if you're like me, I can vibe with conservatives and with leftists and with furries and with kinksters and with the gays and with the trans. I can vibe anywhere. Put me in a bubble and I'm like, But then it gets to the point where the vibe is off because someone says something or does something and now, vibe's ruined. But I can vibe with just basically any bubble I'm in, but that doesn't mean I'm about you. And the dilemma is when you're vibing with people, they're like, oh, you're like me. I'm not like you because we're vibing. Because the parts that we're vibing on are things that are universal shares. Food, music. Why do they say food and music are the bringers, they bring people together? Because everybody likes music and everybody likes food. So when we're together, it's like, oh, if this is the only thing we're talking about, then like we're having a good time. The moment we talk about something else, now the vibe's off. You killed the vibe. So politics is very similar. People really go for the vibe, whether they know it or not. And when, people are vibing, especially I hear from the conservative kinksters, because there's so many Republican kinksters, dude. When they're in dungeons or in groups where people are being very progressive, they're like, I don't feel like I'm being, I don't feel like I belong here. Yeah, you probably don't belong here, but you're here because we have this one thing in common, right? Okay, Key with the super chat. I'm not super chat, but the membership for 27 fucking months. Holy shit. Thank you, bro. Says most philosophically stimulating and engaging stream and community. Like the stream, girls. Thank you so much. Let's see. Chess says I can vibe, but don't play because I am taking notes and we'll discuss with my partner at home. Isn't that so true? Literally so true. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I love the TikToks that are like, make sure you don't tell anybody. Me on the way at home to tell my wife. I'm not going to tell her. I always tell my friends, don't tell me because I'm going to tell her. Don't tell me because I'm going to tell her. Okay? Red Song, thank you so much for the super chat. This is super chat for the vibes. Hey, vibes are good today, girls. Vibes are super good today. Chat says there's a difference between a good neighbor and a cultivating friendships. Yeah, okay, so that's the dilemma. I always say be good to your Republican neighbors, but that doesn't mean you have to be friends with them. Okay? Be good to your Republican coworkers, but that doesn't mean you have to see them after work. Be good to people regardless of their political affiliation. Okay? If a Nazi was hungry, I would feed him. But I would not fuck him and he can't come over for brunch. Okay? If a Nazi needed help, I would help them, but they're not coming over and we're not having sex. Got it? Don't date them. Don't fuck them. Don't make babies with them. They can't come over for brunch. But they certainly, if they are hungry, I will feed them. Okay? If you were hungry, I will feed you. Okay? Oh, bro. Chad says my parents are MAGA, but make excuses for all the minority people they care about, like their Mexican son-in-law and biracial grandchild. Oh my God. Bro, I'm not even kidding you when I say the amount of brown people in my family or / has been married into the family. But even those brown people, oh my God, you know what the funniest thing I saw was? I have a brown person in my life. And I saw their social media. And this is the internalized racism part. I saw their social media, I came across it, and they were literally hashtagging, I'm going to say it wrong, but like white truck party, guys help me. It was like white drinking party, white beer party, something like that. And I was like, what is this? And I clicked on the tag and it was all white people. And I was like, what? You're brown. You're so brown. What are you doing? And it was like all of the hashtags and everything. They were like trying to be white, like white tailgate party. Is that the word? Bryson, thank you so much. Member for 33 months. Oh my God. 33 months? That's crazy. Just like Sanji, if you're hungry, I'll feed you. I want to make a Sanji joke so bad right now. I'm grown. I'm mature. I'm going to put it on Discord. Girl, I'm not 40 yet. Do not judge me. I don't have to be an adult just yet. Okay. Anyways, thank you for that. Appreciate you. Lashes for Ashes. Thank you so much for joining memberships. I see you. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Chat says my mom was like, oh, well, he passes, but his mom doesn't. It was weird. Oh, I dated a girl for a short time. Oh, and I mistold a story the other day on stream, y'all. I told you that I've never dated a conservative, but technically I dated a girl who was apolitical, which means she was conservative. And she told me I was white enough to date, but my sister wasn't. Yeah, that relationship did not last long, but a great breakup. We had a great breakup. Jessica with the super chat, thank you so much, says this was a long time ago. I was very young. This is like 14 years ago. Chat says I have such a hard time internally when I'm vibing with conservatives. Any tips on specific boundaries that help you? Or any tips or specific boundaries that help you? I feel gross after. I think you have to ask yourself why you're there, right? I think there's a part of it where I think about that all the time. Like when I was dating that girl, we met because we worked together and we both realized we were kinky. We both realized we were bisexual. So we were like, oh my God. So we dated naturally because, proximity. And it was fun. And she was a top and I was a bottom and we had a good time. And we'd go on these dates and we'd go to Disneyland and it was fun. Then I got to know her father, who was racist. And then I'd be like, hey, your dad's racist. And she's like, yeah, I know, but he's my dad. I was like, yeah, let's talk about that. Because, I get it. My parents are racist. Most people are racist. Let's talk about it. Raised under white supremacy. Everyone engages in racism. Let's talk about where's your deconstruction at. I didn't know the word deconstruction in the same way that I do now, but we would have those conversations. And I'd say, if you're not going to tackle these things, if you're not going to ask hard questions, right, this relationship probably is not going to work, right? And it didn't. We had a great breakup and that was that. And I don't know what she's doing with her life, and I don't want to know. Don't reach my past. Do not reach out. Thank you. I think what happens is, everyone's on their own journey. And so you have to decide what you're doing there. I was there because that's where my life took me, but my life didn't stay there, right? Chat says, what would possess someone to say that? You're dating a person and you say that about their sister? Well, because it's honest. Guys, if I'm dating somebody, you better tell me your inner thoughts. I need to know what your inner thoughts are. I asked her. We talked about racism. We talked about colorism. We were talking about her dad. And I said, what about my sister? Could you date my sister? And she goes, oh, no, she's too dark. My sister's not even dark like that, bro. My sister's not even dark like that. She's literally not. She's olive. You know what I mean? She's not even brown. So I think that's the problem with dating is I do want to hear all your racist thoughts. I do want to hear all your takes. I do want to hear your hot takes because I need to know if you're going to get out of this or if this is where you're at. Now I would never tolerate it, right? In this old age now, 36, I wouldn't even go past a first date if somebody said anything on the list of things that are no. But 21-year-old Brittany was like, people are all coming from different walks of life and we're all deconstructing. We're all so different. You know what I mean? So I think when we're hanging out with conservatives, I think we have to know why we're there. I think when we're hanging out with transphobes, we got to know why we're there. Are we there because we're at a family gathering? Are we there because we're at work? Are we there because we're all part of a bowling league? And this is just what happens? I think we have to know why we're there and is there a way to make this better? And is there another place we can be? Does that answer your super chat, girl? Let me know. Any tips or specific boundaries that help you? I feel gross after. I don't feel gross after. I feel sad if there's a miscommunication usually. I'm assuming something went wrong. Is something going wrong and you feel gross? Because I feel sad usually. Because the only people in my life who are conservative are my family. I don't have conservative friends or people around me. I don't hang out with conservatives. Yeah, the only people I know who are conservative or Trump are family. So I feel kind of sad that they can't see me, or I feel sad that we can't humanize each other. But I don't feel gross. I feel disappointed. Yeah. So I guess what's the circumstance in which you're hanging out with MAGA people, or conservatives in general, right? Chet says they thought they were complimenting her by saying how white she is. Definitely. I think so too. I think so too. I think they were saying, oh, you're special. You're the special kind of white, something like that. Chess says there are so many conservatives at work. If you're at work, let me just tell you this. And I think I believe this, and especially if you're in a survival situation. Like, I'm in a privileged situation, and so is Jimmy Kimmel, but look what happened to him. The thing is we're all in privileged positions until we're not. P.S. Follow me for free on Patreon in case something does happen to this YouTube channel. You can at least get updates there, or follow me on Blue Sky. You know, follow me on OF if you're into that. Just kidding. But like, it's an option if you're, you know, but like mostly Patreon for free. You know, it's 18 plus, but there's no nudity on there. Thank you. It's just for adults who want to discuss philosophy. The point is like, we're all in a privileged position, but also I could lose my job tomorrow. But you're probably in less of a privileged position, meaning I don't think you should risk your job, generally speaking, just talking about Charlie Kirk. Don't let Charlie Kirk be the reason you don't have a job anymore, right? But so I think there's something to be said about that. You know, it's one thing for me to lose my job. It's another thing for you to lose your job. Like I have 20 other platforms I can go to if I lose my job. You can't just do that. So you got to be strategic about when you pick and choose your battles. So if you're working with a bunch of conservatives, you know, I do, to be honest with you, I do conservatives. I'm probably so good at masking in front of conservatives. They really do run the risk of thinking I'm one of them. Cause I tend to not talk. Like if they're like, oh man, these immigrants, am I right? And I'm just like, I'll just be like, yeah, it's kind of crazy what's happening. And they're like, yeah. So like, you know, have you seen some of those interviews? This black guy did an interview about Charlie Kirk. He looked gay. He was very giving gay. And they're like, what do you think about Charlie Kirk? He's like, yeah, that happened. And I was like, yeah, that happened. He's like, do you have any thoughts on it? He's like, no, I don't. I don't have any thoughts. And I was like, no, I do not have any thoughts. Do not try to get me fired, bitch. I have no thoughts. And like, that's the problem is like, these people will try to get you fired. I have no thoughts. Thank you. Like 0 thoughts. I'm just pretty, you know? It's like, I don't think it's good for all of us to like, you know, run the risk of getting fired. But if you want to die on that hill, I also support you, you know? But yeah, I just kind of stay quiet and go like, yeah, that's crazy. Wow. But I do pick and choose my battles. Like with family, girl, you know, sometimes I also think my family says stuff just to piss me off. So I started doing it back. Okay. So this is why the Kyle Klinsky method doesn't work. So your parents do something, your family does something to piss you off. And then you do it back. And they're just gonna be like, wow, you're so petty, bro. And I'm like, because they're not gonna see that they're petty back. That's what Kyle Klinsky isn't getting. They're not gonna see that they're doing something bad. You being bad back isn't gonna make the bad people be less bad. You being nice to racists isn't gonna make them less racist. You know? Chess says you talk shit about Kyle and Hassan all the time. Thank you. Thank you. All the people think I like Hassan Dick right here. Thank you. Of course I do. You won't ever see me supporting a man who upholds the patriarchy in any capacity. Thank you. Thank you. Chess says, why do they do that? Like on purpose? Well, I think they do it because they're being funny. Like sometimes it looks like this, it looks like this, it looks like this. Okay, you're hanging out with your bro and he'll be like, I'm trying to think of a funny one. Did you see that trans girl in the beer cans? Gross. Kind of crazy. You know that was a guy, bro? I don't even like Corona. Corona sucks. And then you sit there and you like look at them and they're looking at you. They're like, and I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, and then they look at each other and it's like, and then they're waiting. They're waiting. They're like, yeah, they're rage baiting you. They're like, and then I just do this. I just go like, I don't even like Corona. And they go, yeah, but what do you think about the person on the Corona label? And I'm like, you mean, is it Corona or was it even Coors? Was it even Corona? Whoever did it. Was it even either of those? Bud Light. Was it Bud Light? Who was it? I don't even remember. But the point is like, they're looking at you and it's that's what they're doing. They're like poking you. And it's like, you know, it was Bud Light. It was Bud Light. See, I don't even know. I don't drink beer. You know? Yes, Discord said how your brothers wanted you to react. They do. They want you to react that way. They want it because that's what they get the thrill off of. That's what being edgy on the internet is. And I'm just saying, like, you're just being mean. Like, you're being rude. Like, you're just being rude. Okay, it's one thing for us to crack a joke about patriarchy and men and everything, But ultimately, like, a man comes to me crying, I don't sit there and go like, well, that's what you got from the patriarchy. I just say like, hey, bro, I'm really sorry you're feeling that way. Let me get you some help. You want to talk to somebody who's a professional? You know what I mean? Jess says, I like what you said about knowing why you're there. Thank you so much for the super chat, Jessica. I live in a small conservative town and currently cannot move, but I feel so suffocated. Hey, I would honestly, girl, I'll be so real with you. I would feel so fucking suffocated. I lived in a place in Arizona that was very much Trump town, and people were so fucking nice, but bro, I did not socialize. All these people that are like, Britt, now that you're living in Croatia, aren't you worried you don't have friends? Guys, when I lived in America, I didn't leave my house to talk to people. They were nice. I was nice to my neighbors. I knew my neighbors by name. They had my phone number if they needed me. But I am not about to make besties in Trumpville. No. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't, again, like, I don't move places to make friends. I already have friends. My friends just don't live here. I have friends. You know what I mean? My friends just live in different places because we all have jobs. Literally, all my friends live where their jobs are. None of my friends, all my friends' lives are dictated on their jobs. So like, even if I was in America, we didn't live next to each other because our jobs weren't in those locations, right? Now, I lived in Arizona because my family was there and that was fun. Now I think about it, if I move back to America, we're probably going to live like near one of my friends, realistically, wherever one of my friends lives based off their job, right? So if I was in a small conservative town, I would also feel really like an oddball. Which is why I recommend having online communities. So thank you for being here. That's why I recommend when you have the chance, think about where you want to move and build a life. And then you can think about what job to have that takes you there. One of my friends, though, oh, God bless her. She has crazy amount of degrees, very educated, got stuck because of her job. It's so specialized in a small conservative town. Bro, I tell her, I was like, bro, I feel for you. She's very successful, very established, owns a home, like very, very good. But she's so progressive and her job is just happens to be in this very small town. Oh, I feel for her. And she has no choice. She really has no choice. Her job is just too specialized. I'm like, I'm so sorry, bro. She's like, what are you gonna do? And I was like, I'm sorry. So that sucks. Like if you're not locked down by a job, consider work that might take you out of that conservative town. But hey, it happens like that. It does. Chess has no remote options. No remote options. Not for her job, at least, Jess says, how do you deal with being tired, trying to explain propaganda to your parents? I don't want to stop trying, but I'm so tired. Take a break. Don't do it. Take a break. I take breaks. I haven't talked to my parents. Let's see. When was the last time I talked to my parents? I haven't talked to my parents on the phone for 4 months. It's the longest I've gone in a long time. Take a break. Don't worry, it's going to happen really soon here. My goal is to do it in this weekend. The goal is to talk to them this weekend. But yeah, it's been 4 months. I think that's the longest I've gone in a really long time. Take a break. And then when you're ready, try again if you want. Yeah, take a break. Yeah. And that's what I think of it as with Inner Circle. I think of it as a break. For me personally, I'm not cutting ties with my family. I'm not going to stop talking to them, but I might take year-long breaks. I might take a 20-year break if I have to. Do you know what I'm saying? But I'm not cutting them off. I'm just taking a break. Okay? I'm taking a break. And I'm always, if you need anything, reach out, but I'm taking a break. And that's what it is. And that's what we do. I will say we universally kind of like value that in each other. Like my parents know I'm taking a break and they're like, okay. But they know, the way I hope they feel like a kid caught in trouble when I call. Here's the plan. I'm going to call them. My mom's going to answer on FaceTime. And I'm going to say, get dad, I want to talk to both of you. And then I want my mom to be like, yeah, you're in trouble. Sit down. Like, I'm about to, okay. Oh, I can't wait, bro. I'm going to call up, be like, get dad. I need to talk to both of you now. Ooh, they're in trouble, okay? And I'm going to meet them with kindness. Yeah. You're pregnant. Are you pregnant? They are. They're going to be like, what is, and I'm not going to, girl, they already know what they did. I'm going to be like, go ahead. Explain to me what happened. They already know what they did, by the way. They already know what they did. So I don't even have to say anything. I'll be like, so talk to me. Why did you do it? Why did you do it? Tell me. And they're going to be like, listen, they already know why they're in trouble. They already know why they're in trouble. And I know that because my mom sent me a message and I said, oh, you already know you're in trouble. And I didn't respond back to her, so she knows she's waiting. And it's because I'm waiting to be wise when I go. We're going to be wise, loving, calculated, wholesome. Talk to me. Why did you do it? You know, you already know what you did, so tell me. You know why they know why I'm going to call, you know? And my partner, I asked them, I was like, you need to be in the background for emotional support, but you don't have to talk. You just got to be there. So when I start to like, I can look at you and be like, Jessica, thank you so much for the super chat. Whoa, girl, thank you so much. So were you saying this while around conservatives, you don't take the bait? It's hard for me not to say something in response, even if it's just, I don't appreciate that. Oh, girl, listen, it depends on who it is. If it's family, I do this. Okay, like I'm like, ooh, and I go like this. I'm like, I'm honest with my family is very honest. We're liars, but we're honest. Does that make sense? Like, we will lie to ourselves, but we will also be honest in the moment. So no, sometimes I even cry. I'm so stressed. I'm like, you are stressing my biological experience the fuck out. I love you. I need a break. Be like, don't even make me. No, like with family and friends, we are so blunt. I'm like, you know that's fucked up. Why do you say that? Or with family, I'll be like this. It depends on the circumstance. With neighbors and stuff, I don't give a fuck about those people. They're not my family. You know what I mean? It depends on the situation. It really does. Because it's not about like not being a person. It's about being like, hey, I'm not going to ruin my day over your words. Okay? I learned this in therapy, actually. Before I had gone to therapy, I would sit in that room and punish myself by letting them yell at me or lecture me or tell me stuff I didn't want to hear. When I got therapy, I'll tell you this story because you might be new to my audience. So I had gotten DBT and I'd been living in Seattle at the time. So then I came to California and my mom and I had a disagreement and we got in a fight. And I said, Mom, I'm going to go back to my place. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow. I promise I'd be here for 4th of July. I'll come back tomorrow. And she said, you don't have to come back tomorrow and she started yelling at me. She was triggered. Okay. I triggered my mom. We had been, by the way, prior to me triggering and us getting triggered, we were sitting, my parents have 5 acres with a wraparound porch. And we were sitting there on the porch drinking tea and I was crocheting and my mom and I were telling each other stories. And one thing escalated to another. We started talking about politics. And then all of a sudden we're triggered and we're yelling and we're fighting. And I said, okay, wait, hold on, Brittany, DBT. I said, okay, DBT. And I did my DBT steps. And I said, okay, I'm not in danger. Mom's upset. Let's do this. Mom, I love you. I'm going to go home. I'll see you tomorrow. I promise I'd come back tomorrow. And she starts yelling and she goes, no, like this is da. I go home. I cry it out. I'm vibing. This is many years ago now, but okay. So I'm in the shower. I reset. The next day I come back to my mom's house. Okay. And she goes, what are you doing here? And I said, I told you I'd be here. I love you. And I hugged her and she goes, are we not fighting anymore? And I said, nope, we're not going to fight anymore. That used to be us. We used to fight. We're not going to do that anymore. Okay, Betsy. Thank you, Betsy. I'm glad you came. And it de-escalated, right? It's like, it took me a couple years to really understand what I learned in therapy. Even at that moment, I hadn't learned it all. It was really still sinking into my body. And now this Brittany, she knows that she's allowed to mourn and she knows she's allowed to be disappointed and she knows she's allowed to be all of these very human things. But what she's not allowed to be is resentful and bitter, depressed, self-harming. What she's not allowed to be is cruel. What she's not allowed to be is evil, bad, right? So when I confront my parents this coming weekend or whatever, the idea is to confront them with love, unconditional love. So unconditional, it's painful for them. Because in many ways, I think my parents, they want me to push them away so they can feel like now I can't do anything but double down. Like my goal is to love them so unconditionally that pain they feel frees them from the cage they put themselves into. Because I think when I realized my parents unconditionally loved me, It freed me from needing them to change in a way that I can't make it, like I can't even convey to you. When I realized my parents unconditionally loved me, but they wouldn't love me in the way that normal people were loved. You know, like I had a realization that if I was sick and dying and I needed my parents to be here in a week, they probably wouldn't come because they don't have updated passports. Like my parents aren't the parents that pre-plan for tragedy versus my gay siblings were like, oh, hey, we got our passports in case like we have to come short notice. And I was like, or my bestie's parents, they would come because they'd have an active passport and they would come and see me. So they don't love me in that typical traditional way that you would count as love. They love me in that unconditional way that makes everything I do very important to them. Like it actually does impact them. Like I'm not just someone they'll ever forget. They're not just people I knew one time. They're not just people who birthed me. They are literally like very special people on this planet that I will see in a crowd of millions every single time, right? Like that is so unique. Like most of the people I've ever known in my life, guys, will just be like figments of my past. But these people that I think of inner circle, that I think of as like family, they can never just be people that I knew or people that were, right? Jessica, member for 10 months, says, I'm autistic and I've also done DBT in the past and it helped me so much. I love that. I'm thinking from this convo, I need to refresh my DBT skills. Hey, we all do, you know? We all do all the time. I'm really excited. I really look forward to being able to find a therapist eventually over here just to like toss ideas back and forth with somebody. It'd be so good, you know? Especially if I could find somebody who's like aware of social media stuff. Oh my God, that'd be great. Chet says, you've decided the build. You're going to run your character going forward. Yeah. Chet says, my relationship with my parents feels irreparable and listening to you gives me hope. My parents are extremely religious and I have to share I have my share of pretty big mistakes, but I hope it can get better. I think definitely like, well, I can't guarantee an outcome. That's not what we're doing. Like, right. We're not out. I can't guarantee an outcome. I can't guarantee this conversation with my parents doesn't lead to me not talking to them for 5 years. But I know I need to have the conversation before I make the decision. So, okay, avoidant personality, I would have not had this discussion with them and I would have just stopped talking to them, which I've done in the past, by the way. In my 20s, I just stopped talking to my parents for like 5 years. It was on again, off again for 5 years, but I kind of like pieced out. In my 30s, heading into my 40s, my goal is to say, okay, before we take a break, that's a long break, like 4 months is not what I'm talking about. Like before I take a year-long break, I got to have one less conversation just to make sure that's the right decision. Right? That's the thing. Okay? That's me doing my due diligence, I think. Chet says, how do you problem solve with your parents who might not love you unconditionally? I'll be real with you, girly. I don't know if you can. I'm sorry. If your parents, if the people in your life do not love you unconditionally, I think sometimes it's almost impossible. And I'm really sorry about that. That's really, really hard. You know? I'm not going to say what you should do, though. I think you should meditate on it and you should really think about what coincides with your joy. Chatter, I'm going to block you. You said your talks of destiny were really something. I hope you guys make up. I don't know why you'd want me to make up with a sexual predator. Disgusting. That's a disgusting thing to write in my chat. Hey, could you make up with the guy who's facing a felony in Florida for recording people against their consent and sharing their sexual intimacy videos? Yeah, no. Can you like make up with the guy who allegedly maybe has CP on his computer? No. Thank you. Chet says, my relationship with my parents got better for me, at least when I let go. I needed the space to heal. Their love has strings attached. They don't love themselves. Yeah. There is something to be said about like what is unconditional love. It took me a really long time to realize my parents unconditionally loved me. But it, you know, I think when I look at my parents through a specific lens that helps make it all make sense. Like I talked to my partner about this, that it's really hard to explain to people the mourning mourning a family that you love unconditionally and that you like. Like, I think it's hard for people to understand. I really like my parents. I really like my siblings. Like, I really like them. And that's really hard to explain to people. But I really like them. I have so many good memories with them, and I've never laughed harder in my life than with some of my besties, right? With my siblings. And it's really hard to like people so much and to love them so much, and for them to pick a predator over you. Not over you, but not even like with an awareness. I think that's the issue, is like my family is definitely struggling, because like even the predator in my family, I really like him. And I still haven't talked to him since 2019. Because the version of him that I like is not that version. And that version never comes out. I never get to see that version. The version of him I grew up with, the version of him that has all those memories, the version of him that laughed and has, like, I don't know that version. That version doesn't trump the bad things. You know? It's really hard to be a good person. It's really hard to be a good person. But I think when I made the decision to try to be a really good person, not as just a default good person, I think my life got better. And I think the people around me, their life got better. And I think that's what I hold on to, is that I really do think that trying to be a good person a little bit by being less of a bad person every day, like, I've never felt more at peace in my life. I've never felt better about life. I've never felt more at peace with people leaving my life, right? Like, the more I humanize everybody, the more peaceful I feel. Because I also am open with boundaries. Like, I think that's what people have to understand. I want you to understand. The peace I feel it coincides with the boundaries I put into place. My love gets deeper, my boundaries get stronger. My love gets deeper and my boundaries get stronger. I think there's like this desire to be avoidant, this desire to be like, I don't even love you. I'm cut off from you. I'm not even attached to you. I don't even know you like that. We're not even close. When I think about it from a woman, a very feminist perspective of my mother, from her own body, giving 10 kids life, my grandma's body giving 17 people their life. When I think about the burden of pain and the violence it took for these women to bring souls into the universe, when I think about it from a very spiritual, like, feminine lens, and I think about the connection they have to those kids and their bodies bear the scars of that violence, and I think about how they did it with a smile on their face, it like puts into perspective like how powerful it is that we even exist in the first place. And by the way, that's 17 births, but not, or 17 living children, but not 17, some of the children died young and some of the kids didn't even make it, you know, they died miscarriage. But like, yeah, like I think about that too. I think about how many times my mom's had like 5 miscarriages. I think about my grandma has had all these miscarriages. How many of my aunties and uncles died before I even got to, before they were even like 1 year old or 5 years old? I have like an aunt, my dad's sister, who died. She hit her head on a rock. I didn't even know that till I was older. I was like, I have an aunt. He goes, yeah, you have another aunt. She died. I was like, your sister died? He goes, yeah, I never told you that. I was like, no, I have an auntie. I didn't know that. I didn't know that, you know? Yeah. Chet says, do you have any advice for the guilt that we can feel when we have less contact with our family that than they would like? Well, guilt comes from a betrayal of your own values, and shame comes from the betrayal of the bubble. So I'm assuming you're feeling like a little bit of shame because people are guilting you into not showing up, but you probably are doing it because your values won't let you, right? If you have a family that's guilting you into it, I would put down really hard boundaries with them until you kind of train it out of them. That's what I did. In the beginning, would train it out of I remember my farm brother was getting married. This was years ago. I was in Seattle and I wasn't talking to my family. So my brother was getting married and I had always dreamed about being at that wedding. So all the family starts calling me. You got to come to this wedding. I don't care that you're fighting. You got to come to this wedding. I don't care that you're not talking to mom and dad. You got to come to this wedding. I called my brother and said, I love you. I'm not fighting with you, but I'm not coming if mom and dad are going, and I'm not coming if I have to see other people. And I respect you enough to not ruin your wedding day. So I'm not coming. And he goes, okay, cool. I respect you. Love you. And I was like, cool, base. But my other brothers called me and said, you got to come. If you don't come, that's fucked up. You're going to ruin the day. You got to come. First of all, I did not ruin the day. Nobody missed me. Okay. And the brother who was getting married was cool with it. And I think that stopped eventually. Eventually, my parents and people and brothers and sister stopped calling me to tell me I had to do something for the family. And I think I started implementing those rules, honestly, after DBT and some philosophical work, because eventually, and now I teach them, I love you. You cannot force people to hang out. You have got to accept that people aren't ready. And I think it comes from other siblings having that. I remember when one of my brothers, he spent like 5 years away from the family. And my mom would say, I don't get it. Why doesn't he call me? And I'd say, if you can't get it, that's probably why he's not calling you. And she'd say, okay. He can stay away. Fine. I was like, well, maybe if you could get it, he wouldn't stay away. To this day, he still stays away. She hasn't gotten it. They haven't gotten it, but they don't complain anymore. They haven't gotten it, but they don't bring it up. I'll take it. At least they don't bother anybody anymore. Chad says, my mom recently told me she had a twin sibling that died as children. I was shocked. Whoa. Isn't that crazy? Our parents with all their fucking lore, bro. Chad, I hope that helped. But in general, I would say put down your boundaries, but be kind and loving, That's what I would do. And I would say don't feel guilty. Feel proud of yourself for putting down boundaries. Just do it out of love. Guys, I used to be so resentful and I would be like, I hope my parents fucking die. My parents are so fucked up. I wish I would die. I wish everybody would die. And then I realized, imagine a world where I didn't need anyone to die, including myself, where I could still be happy. And I found that world by becoming that world, I really did. I freed myself from that negativity. And I reminded myself that no one had to die for the world to be a better place. And once I discovered that, my whole life shifted. Nobody has to die for the world to be a better place. I think it's the most powerful thing I've ever learned in my whole life, which is why I don't care for this violence, Yeah. Chat says boundaries are a way to show people how they can better love you and be around you, not to push them out. Exactly. An ultimatum is different than a boundary is different than a threat. Boundaries give your parents opportunities to love you better. Boundaries give your friends better ways to love you. Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to, I never want to come on stream and try to paint it like I'm not being impacted by the world. Girl, I cry on a daily basis for the world. Okay, on a daily basis, does TikTok have me crying for the world in the way that it suffers? I just make sure that my the pain I feel for the world doesn't stop me from helping it. Because in the past it would cripple me and I couldn't help anybody. I couldn't help myself. But now I feel it, I cry about it, I wake up, put on my makeup, and I come stream. And that's what it is. I wake up, I show up. But that doesn't mean I'm not crying about it. It doesn't mean I probably won't cry later after the stream. It just means I'm going to cry and still get it done. Cry, but still get it done, Yeah. I think that's what falling into despair is. Falling into despair is just crying. You got to lift yourself out of that despair and still get it done. For your sake and others, but take your time because it's really difficult. You got to learn how. Okay? Take your time, but do it now, right? All right. Any last thoughts we'd like to go over before we end today's stream? Tomorrow we come back with a recharge for the weekend. We're going to go over Ned's affair from the Try Guys. So much to say on that, I'm sure, right? Chess is Brittany on the subject of crying for the world. I really recommend the practice of Tongan, a Tibetan Buddhist practice. Okay, I'll look into this. I don't know what this is, but I'll look into it, bro. Between caring for the world and looking for yourself. Sounds based. I'll look it up. I'll even write that into my Discord so we can keep track because we're all autistic little researchers. So maybe we can all research that and see what we find from it, you know? Chat says, so thankful for this community. Hey, so thankful for you guys. Remember, and I need to say this again, this community cannot exist without your participation. And just one last thought, guys. I know I pinned this comment on my post about this person in my community. And I know some people were writing me that this person doesn't seem that dangerous. With peace and love, the community cannot be a safe space if you do not understand the boundaries. Okay? So if you go around my boundaries, if you go and bother other people in the community, if you send me a million messages on DMs, like you are unsafe for the community, and now it's going to escalate to something more. If I've done everything in my power to say, please leave me alone in private, and then you take it more public, and so I have to take it more public, it's so I can warn my community and myself and remind ourselves to stay safe. This community cannot be a safe space if you are not a safe community. So thank you for participating and helping make this community a safe space. Because it really does. That's what a community does. A community, we all have to build a safe space for the community. Even when somebody is hurting, your pain cannot be the reason you go over people's boundaries, okay? Thank you guys for being here. I do appreciate it. You know, I'll be back tomorrow and it will be great. We'll reset away from this Charlie Kirk bubble because God knows it's destructive, you know? Yeah. All right, girlies. See you tomorrow. Thank you for being here. Treat yourselves with kindness. Bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Oof. Nice cleansing music, girl. All right. See you tomorrow.